This week, the Echelon Racing League heads to Indianapolis, Indiana. Deep in the heart of the Midwest, this quiet giant has been home to some of the world's greatest sports moments and heroes as their birthplace and their proving ground. It's a city that does several things very well. They love speed, they love sports, and they love their heroes. Indy has seen some of the greatest of all time. Today, it's a new kind of champion as the Momentum Indy Crit goes virtual in Week 7 of the Echelon Racing League. And there they are, the riders getting ready for Week 7 of the Echelon Racing League as we head to Indianapolis, Indiana for the Momentum Indy weekend with the Indy Crit today. Brad Soner here with Frankie Andreu as we get ready for another week of virtual racing here. Frankie, it has been incredible to watch the growth of this league, the growth of these riders, and the growth of virtual racing over the last 6-12 months. It's really been incredible to see how things change. Let's get right into it, talking about where we're headed today in the Echelon Racing League for our course profile presented by VeloViewer here. Super unique course in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, in the great state of Indiana. And my home, the Midwest, just a little bit west of where I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. We are deep in the heart of downtown Indianapolis. The course, really cool. It touches two monuments in downtown. The Indiana World War Memorial Plaza, that honors Indiana veterans fighting in World War I, and the Soldiers and Sailors Monument at the south end of the course. Riders were actually going around Monument Circle. It's one of the coolest parts of the course here, Frankie. But the thing that I love about this, it's unique. It's certainly far from the cookie-cutter four-corner course.
Yeah, definitely nothing like a four-corner. I mean, 7 corners, a little bit over a half a mile to be able to go around. Very technical and very fast. And you add into the bricks. They have the bricks that you have to go around Monument Circle. So that adds a little bit of a dynamic to it. 35 laps the riders will be competing today. You see a 0.9 mile of a circuit. Not much really of an uphill and a downhill as we go through right here just after the start line. So coming through the start line, this is where Monument Circle is. This is where they're on the bricks. You can see it's a little bit more bumpy. Got to pay a little bit more attention to kind of those bike handling skills. But one thing about the Indy course is that it's very wide open. It's almost a no brakes kind of type of course. So it's very, very fast. Coming through here with like turn number 2, long backstretch here. So if you're off the front, this is a chance to either keep the pressure down, or you can decide, hey, I'm going to ease up, try to recover a little bit, try to catch my breath. But if you're in the back, this is where you have to play a game of catch up. And this is what we're going to see in the RGT platform. A lot of riders getting gapped out of turn numbers 2, trying to be able to catch back up here to make sure they're in the first group. This is the most calm of the course, because once they come up here to turn number 3, this is where it gets a little bit more technical. Again, in real life, no brakes, very wide, but on RGT, you're going to have that logarithm braking taking place. And so the riders are going to have to be able to figure out how to handle these corners, coasting into the corners, accelerating out of them, not to be able to get dropped from a group. Very fast course. This is, we're going to have turns of right, turns of left, everybody fighting for position as they're coming around the top part of the course now.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed in downtown, or part of racing in downtown, the tall buildings. If there's wind on this Indy Crit course, you're exposed in the open sections like this. But when you get into those sort of canyons, there can be some really directional wind when you're racing downtown.
Yeah, and as they come around this final, well, not final turn, one of the corners at the top part of the course, this is where they have to start thinking about position, and it's no different in real life than on T, because the sprint is going to take place. It's a long ways out of the last corner, but you have to be in the top 5, top 6. So this is where that kind of battle for position is going to take place, coming out of turns number 6 into turn number 7. It's a right-hand turn going into this final left-hand turn. Then it's about a final 300, 400 meters to the line. So you definitely might not want to be the first rider coming out. Take advantage of that draft. try to have the good legs after a very fast criterium course. And we're going to see who the sprinter is today for the Indy Criterium.
And then back through the line and start it all over again as we take a look at some riders to watch out there today. You see Krista Doble-Hickok slowly creeping up on the overall into second place for rally cycling at 232 points. But Jackie Godbey still sitting comfortably on top of the leaderboard heading into this one today. Christy Tracy dropping down into third for Team Infinite. Eleanor Wiseman sitting in fourth place for the Amy D Foundation. She's been having some good riding, along with Stephanie Sidlick in fifth place for the Canyon Esports team. So a lot of strong riders in this one, and the criterium has been the ultimate decider in virtual racing here. We know that on the long road races, Jackie Godbey has been dominant, but pretty much every time that Godbey has been beat, it's been on one of these technical criterium courses. So a lot of those names going to be looking to dethrone Godbey up at the top today. Velocity Vixen leading the team competition in the Echelon Racing League heading into the race today, with Team Infinite sitting in second at 464 points. Amy D Foundation with a strong showing across the squad in third place overall, and then Triple X Racing Atletico with 373 points. Those are all taken by Jackie Godbey in the women's series, the only rider for the Triple X Racing Atletico squad. In short, Pedal Power in fifth, Canyon Esports in sixth, and the Rally Cycling Team, USA National Team, some riders switching back and forth in seventh. So some pretty strong teams, some pretty strong riders, and pretty impressive field out there today, Frankie. But without a doubt, Jackie Godbey going to be the one to watch out there today. The power that she's been able to put up, I mean, the numbers that she puts up on a weekly basis, the consistency alone are enough to say that Jackie Godbey has got to be the hero today.
Now, it's kind of interesting in the Echelon Racing Series that the top two riders overall are two individuals. They're riding on their own team. They're their own riders, and so it's interesting that but Jackie Godbey has been an incredible force during this race series. She likes riding on the front. She puts it right at about 4 watts per kilogram and just tries to see who's going to be able to stay on her wheel. But what's been very impressive is on the uphill sprints, the flat sprints, she has the power to be able to compete against the sprinters, and she's also shown she has really good time trialing ability and is very strong in the road races. At only 31 years of age, 5'9", coming out of Chicago, not riding outside, so a lot of her focus has been riding on inside, and she's not only been doing the RGT races, but also a lot of other indoor virtual races, and she's been very successful in all of her endeavors so far.
There is Godbey warming up, getting ready in a familiar view that we have come to know well here in the Echelon Racing League. These were her numbers from last week at the Joe Martin stage race. They had a criterium there on the last day. This will probably be the most similar to that. If you look at all the courses that we've done this year in the Echelon Racing League, I think the course that we saw last week, 2 weeks ago actually, at the Joe Martin stage race is probably the most similar to what we're going to be seeing out there today. So I was trying to look at some of the power numbers, Frankie, trying to see where these races are won and lost. It's really about efficiency. It's not always the rider with the highest watts per kilogram that ends up winning the race. It's about the rider that's the most efficient out there. So we'll be watching Jackie Godbey in that battle today as we are inside 1 minute to race start. Want to bring in our in real life race director as we welcome Jennifer Svar to the race broadcast. Jennifer, we are very close to getting started here today, but a few quick words from you. This has got to be exciting to see your first virtual Indy Crit about to kick off.
It's very exciting. And that intro, I have to say, it almost made me teary-eyed just thinking about it and how we have this optimism and enthusiasm coming into 2021. So we're really excited that that Project Echelon could offer this, but the Indy Crit is really, really proud to be a part of this today, and hopefully we'll see everyone at our real race later this year.
Well, it's hard not to be excited. This is such a cool course and such a cool race, and it strikes home for me because it's close to where I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Everyone loves some good Midwest criterium racing, right, Frankie? As a Detroit guy, you got to have some love for the Midwest races.
I used to go around all over the Midwest doing the criteriums, and so, I used to call it cash cow weekends. We used to go to criteriums every weekend, try to be able to bring home about $1,000, and it was a ton of fun. Racing against the same riders over and over, and it's very similar to what we're experiencing here with the RGT. One thing also about the Indy Crit, it's not just about the races there, because they also have a big group ride, the Major Taylor ride. They have different distances that the riders can go out and participate in. So It's also bringing in the community to be able to watch the bike race, participate in a bike ride, a full-rounded community event. But right now we see Britt Mason and Jackie Godby, no surprise, riding on the front. We'll talk a little bit later. I did participate in the Indy Criterium with the RGT and the amateur platform, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on because these riders are already doing better than I did.
Well, it's certainly a different game racing on the virtual platforms as we talked about the learning curve that the riders have made, but we're starting to see a lot of riders figure it out. And Frankie, I think you are right on the cusp of figuring out. You are just about to break through into your virtual racing career. I can feel it. It's right on the horizon for you. You've done a couple races now. You're into 3 or 4. What was the biggest learning curve for you trying out virtual racing?
The biggest difference is the first one I got dropped relatively quick. The second one I made it through halfway through, which was the Indy Crit. I made it through halfway through, but I kept finding myself going off the front, coming out of the corners. You're putting the power down. I was surging on the front, then coming off the back. So I decided to go down a gear and try to spin to try to be able to see if I could sit in. I was trying to just kind of sit in and suck on a wheel like a wheel sucker would be, like a true sprinter in a criterium course. But again, really was amazing is the focus. And once you lose that focus a little bit of your positioning, I found myself 3 bike lengths, 4 bike lengths off the back. I tried coming back in, but once you're out of that draft, it was game over. And that's exactly the position I found myself in. And so for a lot of these races, it's about, being very consistent with the power, but really not losing that position because once you lose the draft, it's game over.
Yeah, you really got to pay attention up front. You may be better suited for the Major Taylor ride at the Indy Crit. You were talking about that earlier. As part of the Momentum Indy weekend, spectators and visitors can take part in the Major Taylor ride in the morning before the Indy Crit. 16, 30, and 50-mile ride options start with a parade loop around the Indy Crit course. After checking out the turns and pavement that the pros tackle later on in the day, riders head out to the Indy Cycloplex, home of the Major Taylor Velodrome, where riders can learn about the legacy of Major Taylor, get tips on riding in gear, and then return to downtown Indy for the start of racing at the Indy Crit. It is one of the coolest rides out there, an awesome way to start the day at the Indy Crit. You get to ride out and see the Velodrome, which is a first for a lot of people. Major Taylor Velodrome in Indy, one of the coolest in the country, and then back downtown for some racing and fun. So, Frankie, if the virtual racing doesn't work out, you can join the Major Taylor ride next year. Do a little casual cruising out to the Indy Cycloplex.
I would definitely do some casual cruising. And I'll say also with the Indianapolis Velodrome that if you've never ridden on a velodrome, it really is one of the perfect ones to learn on. 333 meters around, it's not that steep, so relatively easy to be able to get onto the velodrome, learn how to ride it, experience what riding on a banked kind of surface is like. Without being kind of very intimidated, because some of the velodromes now are starting to get steeper and steeper, but the Indy Velodrome is still a fantastic facility, and you'd be very impressed about the facility and how easy it is to be able to ride on the velodrome. So I would suggest to anybody to go out there and be able to give it a chance.
Yeah, pretty cool opportunity to get to check out the velodrome, and you get to do a lap on the Indy Crit course. So pretty cool. If you can bring the kids out, bring the family out, let them see the course that the pros are going to be doing later. Incredible support for this race throughout the community, including from the highest levels of city government. In fact, we even got a special welcome from the mayor of Indianapolis.
Welcome to the first ever virtual Indy Crit bike race. I'm Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett. Every year I've been in office, I've proudly participated in the Indy Crit. As a showcase for the sport of cycling, a healthy lifestyle, and active transportation, this festival has always been a personal favorite. The Indy Crit embodies the competitive and athletic spirit of Indianapolis, bringing people together to celebrate all things cycling. Today we celebrate in that same spirit virtually. When we can safely gather in person, we hope to see you in Indianapolis for the live Indy Crit. Until then, I thank you, and I'm wishing good luck to all of our athletes.
It's big time when you got the mayor sending the race off. We've seen some pretty cool starters, but It's always impressive when you get the mayor out there to send the race off. And I know he's been a participant in the Indy Crit as well. They have a pretty cool celebrity relay ride during the day as well, where some local celebrities, local heroes get out there and try the course. And I know the mayor has been a part of that in years past as well. Frankie, back out on course. Group still together. I think they're playing the waiting game early here, as this group has really learned that it's just about trying to contain Jackie Godby. I mean, wait, watch, see if you can burn her out early on. But Godby, the ultra endurance rider, one of the hardest in this field to burn out. So if riders want to try and catch Godby off guard today, I think you got to try a break early, got to try and get away, because if you just wait for the last couple laps, it's going to be really easy for Jackie Godby to power away today.
And the problem right now is the speed. I mean, going 46 kilometers per hour. It's a big group, so it's very, very fast. So the amount of power to be able to go off the front and kind of keep that gap would be, it would be a difficult challenge. But Godby has proven an incredibly strong rider, and of course, she's the one we're talking about because she's won almost 10 out of the events that we have had. So she definitely has a mark on her back. But I also want to welcome, there's 3 or 4 riders from the Indianapolis area that has decided to get into the virtual racing. And so it's great to be able to see. It's the first time for Upland Brewing to participate in the Echelon Racing League. You have Grace Spinnett and Mary Pinta, who's on board with us. And then also, I guess you could call it even a local rider, Ariel Coy from Indianapolis. And so it's great to be able to see 3 or 4 riders from Indianapolis accepting the invitation to be able to come and participate in the RGT platform. And for them, it's going to be a little bit new. These riders have an advantage who have raced on RGT already 3 or 4 times or more. They're going to have figured out how to be able to figure out the drafting, how to be able to sit in, when to be able to use their power, and when to be able to save themselves. And so that's going to come into play a little bit later on. We already see, I think we saw 4 or 5 riders just getting gapped off in one of the corners and not being able to catch back on. So we already have 4 or 5 riders off the back.
Here's a look at Ariel Coy from the Marion University squad with her look. The Soigneur and the RGT setup in front of her. Having someone next to you is massively helpful in racing. We've been seeing a lot more riders with someone there. Give you water, give you food. You're pretty occupied in the race. Frankie, you talked about how intense it is, how focused you need to be on the game. So sometimes even just spending time fumbling with a food wrapper or trying to grab a bottle, something like that, you can miss a move like that on RGT. So we've seen a lot of people recruiting soigneurs for virtual racing, something I never thought that I would say or see, but here we are.
No, but it would make a big difference if you can just focus on that screen and not have to worry about anything else. But also with, it's an hour effort getting a reminder from your soigneur standing on the side it's just like in real life. You have to eat, you have to drink, stay hydrated and make sure you're in good form waiting for those final laps around. But Ariel, a good road rider also, winning the Fat and Skinny Tire Festival and also winning Hyde Park Blast, big race out of Cincinnati. And last year she was 8th at the Indy Criterium. So she knows this course. She's a good crit rider, a good road rider, and glad to be able to see her participating as Sacho and Doble Hickok coming to the front. Now, Doble Hickok has been moving up in the rankings. Every race she seems to be getting, I don't want to say figuring it out better, because actually I think Doble Hickok, in her case, she's actually getting stronger. I think she's really gained a lot of fitness from doing these virtual races.
And that's part of it, trying to maintain the fitness, trying to find the fitness, and then trying to hold the fitness in a season that you don't really know when it's going to start or end. That was a big part of Krista Doble Hickok, talking about how she needed that motivation, she needed that next goal, she needed to know when she was competing next. And for a lot of riders, that wasn't a reality, and so a lot of riders have found that competitive outlet in virtual racing here. There's a look at Doble Hickok in her pain cave that we've come to know well. We saw last week Krista had her dad watching, got some bonus dad watts, and that got her a win, her first virtual win of the Echelon Racing League. Been racing with us since the start of the series and finally got the big W at the Joe Martin Stage Race.
Yeah, she had 3 seconds before she was able to take that win at the Joe Martin Road Race. So, that was this will be her 3rd year with the professional cycling team Rally. A previous runner has gone into cycling, and she's a phenomenal climber. That really is her specialty. But honestly, the way this virtual racing has been going, she's been able to hold her own. So I think she's found a new avenue to be able to kind of express herself cycling wise.
Godby still setting tempo up here at the front. You'll see a few riders kind of shooting off the front, like you see Coy here. A lot of times this is riders that are just figuring out the physics of the game. We talked about the importance of drafting in the group. The turns, Frankie, are also critical. And in a criterium like this, 7 corners on each lap, knowing how to handle those turns in RGT is going to be a big advantage for these riders.
Yeah, because coming into the turn, depending on the speed that you're going, but at this speed at 42 kilometers per hour, the virtual platform applies a little bit of resistance. And so if you can know when that is going to take place, you can coast a little bit, recover like around this turn, and then start pedaling again when you're coming out of it. But it is a balance. And that's been the hard part for me to be able to figure out as some of the better riders here who have done a little bit more of the events. They've got it dialed. They've got it nailed down as we're taking a look at Jackie Godby. 366 watts, 300 watts, keeping it steady right now, 3.5 watts per kilogram. So that's a big effort. And part of the reason, Jackie Godby is riding like this is because the speed is so high still. 43 to 44 kilometers per hour. So riders are flying around this course right now. Only 11 minutes in. And it's nice to be able to see that we have a big group here still fighting it out.
Yeah, a lot of riders surviving in this group. I think a larger group later than we've seen before. A lot of times this group gets split early on as the riders set some pretty serious power numbers early on and kind of cause that first initial selection. But I think we're looking at 22 riders in this group. So good looking field surviving through the first about 15 minutes of racing here as they roll back under the Momentum Indy line.
Someone's taking a flyer there. I thought it was Britt Mason, and that's what it is. It is Britt Mason. So figuring out the power to be able to sit in. Lauren Matson-Coe's got to be one of the favorites for today. A very good rider, a good sprinter. Had some good success at the Joe Martin stage race, and she has a couple wins underneath her belt. Winning at the Gateway Park, at Benton, and at the Sunset Loop. So Lauren Matson-Coe definitely knows how to be able to ride this and to be able to sit in. See Emily Walker now starting to be able to come to the front. So different riders, and it's just like in real life. You see that kind of washing machine effect, coming around the outside, coming to the front, and kind of getting drifting back into the middle. A constant fight for position taking place right now.
Yeah, the washing machine effect in virtual racing. Some of the riders are always battling, and some of the developers are always battling as well, trying to minimize that in the game. RGT has done a really good job of that recently, trying to adjust the physics, really constantly taking the feedback of the racers and riders in the community and trying to tweak that to make the best riding experience. This really is tailored to cyclists, Frankie. I mean, this is not for someone just looking for a fun workout. It's not like Peloton where you've got an instructor. This is the advantage of RGT here is really the ability to mimic real-life courses.
Look here at Britt Mason. Yep, nice job. She's been riding on the front, going off the front a couple little times out of Elliott City, Maryland. She's riding presented by Pedal Power. Looks like that plant behind her needs a little bit of water, maybe. Saving all that water for her. She's drinking it up. Got to be able to stay hydrated. See Crone, Mason, Pole, Ayala. These are familiar names. These are names we've seen regularly in the Echelon Racing League. And so right now, Godby is the one on the front once again. You see in that red, white, and blue in the middle, and the blue kind of drifting to the back. That's Stovall Hickok. So yeah, we've seen other races. 2 riders just off the back again. And again, it's not about the legs. It's really not about them not being able to keep up. It's just a little bit of a lack of focus, concentration, or figuring out those turns, and all of a sudden you find yourself a few bike lengths off the back, and then it's very difficult to be able to catch back up. So Going to see if those two riders are able to be able to make contact, but at a speed of 42 kilometers per hour, it's hard. And one thing I've noticed also on the left-hand side of the screen, think of a crit like normally if you're sitting in, it's kind of easy to follow, but a lot of riders repeatedly having to go into the red. I mean, look at that right now. You'll see 5 watts, 5.5, 6 watts as they're trying to respond to the effort coming out of the corners. And so that's something different that we really haven't seen in some of the other crits. So the Indy crit, because of its 7 corners, proving probably a little bit more difficult for some of the riders to handle than we had expected.
Yeah, the other thing I've been noticing are the riders at the back. Watch how they respond to getting gapped off. The experienced riders just slowly add the power back in. If you're new to the platform, you want at first to just slam on the gas and try to get back up into the group. But that's actually, it doesn't help because you're wasting watts once you get in and the physics start to take over in our GT. So the riders that don't quite go into the red zone when they're dropped off the back are usually the riders that know what they're doing. Not that they want to get dropped, but it is sort of part of virtual racing, and so you have to know how to be able to get back into the groove and get back on. A lot of learning, a lot of new stuff happening on RGT all the time as we continue to explore the platform. I want to bring in Echelon Racing League Commissioner Eric Hill to talk a little bit about some new stuff that they have in the pipeline as we head to the Tour of America's Dairyland up next in the Echelon Racing League. Eric, I understand we're going to have some new competitors in a couple weeks at Toad.
Yeah, Brad, one of the things that's most exciting about the virtual racing platform is our ability to make it accessible to anybody and to create equitable racing experiences. And so with that, Tour of America's Dairyland has a long history of hosting hand cycling events for disabled athletes. And we are going to be bringing hand cycling events to the virtual world during the Tour of America's Dairyland Amateur Series and our Pro Series, providing them an opportunity to compete between both the men's and the women's race throughout the course of that weekend. So extremely proud of that opportunity, especially given our veteran mission to educate, equip, and empower veterans. A large number of those athletes that compete in hand cycling events are disabled veterans, and we're extremely proud to be able to give them this opportunity as well.
Super exciting. This is one of my favorite parts of the Tour of America's Dairyland every year. They host in real life hand cycle and paracycle racing there. Eric, this is a great opportunity because we really haven't seen a lot of paracycling on the virtual platforms yet.
Yeah, no, we haven't. And it's the perfect opportunity, right? You think about equipment differential for those athletes. You think about the difficulty of traveling to get to races for those athletes, the ability to build community right now. We want to leverage this platform to give them an equal opportunity to compete at the highest level, to connect with one another, and experience what our pro athletes and our amateur athletes have been experiencing since November on the RGT platform.
Keep up the good work, Eric, over at Echelon Racing League. This is really exciting for cyclists all over the country. Great work.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm excited for you to call the race. It's going to be really exciting to hear those unique stories throughout the day.
Yeah, we've come to know these riders from racing in person at races around the country, and it'll be cool to get back together in the virtual world here on RGT. Frankie, at 38 kilometers of racing to go, Coy back on the front. She's been aggressive up there today.
Yeah, Ariel Coy is not kind of hanging back for anyone. So obviously showing she's very comfortable with the speed and the power that's needed to be able to stay in this front group. Once again, I love, we've seen other races where, 6 riders have separated themselves over a couple little climbs or for whatever reason, and it's been a 6-rider race. This is fantastic that we have, I would say we have a good 15 to 20 riders in this front group, all kind of following each other's wheels and trying to, some riders are trying to sit in, they're trying to stay rested. But Brad, as you had mentioned many times, it's a rider that's going to be able to conserve. It's not going to be the biggest watts on the day or at the end of the day that's going to take the win here, because we see, again, a lot of riders coming out of the corner into the red. You can only do that so much. That's going to sap your energy. That's going to take a little bit out of you. And so it really is going to be the one that's able to be the most efficient here, that's going to be able to have those sprint legs for the course. Got to be able to watch out for Jacqueline Godby. I think Double Hickok will have it. Lauren Matson-Coe, Christy Tracy, some of the more powerful riders that we previous races should be here at the end. But I would love to be able to see a surprise winner, perhaps even somebody from Indianapolis who's coming onto the platform for the first time to be able to get a good result. Now it's shaping up that way, and this is great to be able to see.
I don't know if we're allowed to cheer for riders or not, but I am all in on trying to get a local Indy rider across the line first today. That would be super cool to see, and well, it would just make things exciting because in this women's race, we have seen such a dominant performance from Jackie Godby over the last 6 weeks of racing. Seeing a new rider up at the front, it's a good opportunity. Good to see new names and faces on top of the podium, and I'm sure Jackie Godby would be more than happy to share some podium space with some new riders up on the top step. Well, Godby has really become one of the heroes of the Echelon Racing League over the last few months of racing. We talked about some of the heroes at the start of the show that have called Indy home, have really honed their skills in Indy. We talked about Major Taylor, but I also want to mention another guy, Reggie Miller, who has been a big cyclist, a new member of the USA Cycling Board. Reggie got his mural in Indy already.
When you're dealing with a well-known figure, everyone knows that's not how he holds his mouth when he's shooting the ball, or that's not how he holds his hand. At one point, he looked like Cheryl. Most of them drive by and yell, "Boom baby," or "Reggie, Reggie, Reggie," or "You're really painting that?" It's not really about Reggie himself. It's kind of about the atmosphere at that time, especially during the finals. You know, everyone was just so excited. It didn't matter what color you were, it didn't matter what your occupation was. Everybody was just rooting for the Pacers. You know, it brought Hoosiers together, I think. Indiana, it's not a California, it's not a New York, so this helped Indiana stand out a little bit, and it gave Hoosiers a little bit more pride.
And in September of last year, the Arts Council kicked off the Bicentennial Legends Mural Series to celebrate the city of Indianapolis' 200th birthday. Internationally recognized cyclist and racial justice advocate Marshall Major Taylor will be honored with the first public mural in 2021 downtown. You can donate to that cause with the MajorTaylorIndy.org, Major Taylor Coalition. They're collecting funds to get that mural finished up. They've already got the location picked out. It is an awesome spot right in downtown Indy, and they're just raising those last few dollars to make sure that they can get that maintained and built, picking out the artist right now. So highly encourage you to make a donation. I cannot wait to see that up in Indy. I hope it's done before Indy Crit 2021. I hope we get to see it in person soon. What an awesome way to honor Major Taylor in Indianapolis. Well, things looking pretty similar here on the front of the group to the way we left them. Frankie, group still together. We had 22 riders at last check. I think all 22 are still in there. You see them working through some lap traffic in this group as well. The lap riders are allowed to get back into the group. That's one of the other differences between virtual racing and in real life racing. Lap riders don't pose any danger to the group going around, so they can leave the lap riders in as long as they want, and lap riders get to do the full distance of the race. They can get back into the group. They're scored a lap down, but same physics apply and everything for lap riders. So you might see a few new riders getting mixed in here. Those are probably lap riders that are getting picked up on the front and sitting in, trying to hang in there. Morgan Chafin taking a look up on the front. Chafin riding for the Velocity Vixen squad. This is one of the omnipresent teams in the Echelon Racing League. We see this squad all over the place in the purple and orange jerseys of the Velocity Vixen team. One of the more recognizable jerseys in the field, although I got to say, I think Canyon Esports there in purple and blue is probably the easiest to pick out in the group, the flashiest in the Echelon Racing League.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That purple and blue from Canyon Esports really does stand out. It's very easy to be able to spot them. I got to say, Insured, presented by Pedal Power, also, you know, those light blue jerseys stand out pretty good. And Krista Doble Hickox with the red, white, and blue stands out pretty well. So a lot of these riders, you know, some of them have team could be able to play a little bit of a part a little bit later on if anybody's able to attack, but also keeping that speed a consistent pace. They might be able to use some of their teammates to be able to help set them up for a sprint. And I think that's going to be important coming into that final lap. Down that backstretch that we saw in our the camera view that we took at the beginning of the race, that backstretch is going to be critical leading in towards turns number 4 and 6, to be able to get ready for that finish line.
Yeah, this is probably a course where you can really use a teammate well in this scenario, or use teammates. Not every race having a team is going to help you, but if you can kind of control the speed of the group through some of the corners, you can get a teammate that can set tempo up on the front, like setting a false tempo when you have a rider up the road in the group. That's a huge advantage to riders if they're able to figure that out and get it dialed in on the platform, which is easier said than done, but teams are starting to figure it out. They are starting to figure out how to counteract attacks, how to counterattack when those moves come back, things like that. So it's been an evolution of racing tactics out there on RGT. All green across the board here, Frankie. You can see the power zones for the riders to the left of their names. There's also a colored bar below their names hovering above the avatar. Just a few riders going into the red zone. You see Britt Mason in the back there just trying to close that gap. But for the most part, looks like they're in a pretty comfortable zone right now.
Yeah, relatively comfortable, coming up on a half hour of racing. Still got a little ways to go. So, the riders right now just trying to, again, you get kind of lulled into that sense of, hey, everything is going fine. I'm just going to kind of cruise for a little bit. And that's where you kind of can catch yourself off the back and then find yourself in a little bit of trouble. And that's why we see some of those red numbers coming as we see Double Hickok, 6.1 watts per kilogram. Trying to see big power on the left-hand side in that red, white, and blue jersey, all of a sudden finding yourself all the way up to the front. So if you can balance it, just being able to middle, that is that efficiency that we were talking about. But nice to be able to still see this big group. Eleanor Weissman also, she's been doing a great ride out of Oakland, California for the Amy D Foundation. And also Ether Walker, we've seen her coming to the front, coming to the back, also a rider from Amy D Foundation out of California. So Amy D, with more than a few riders in this front group, really put together a great squad for the Indy Crit. Look at this attack, almost it seemed like from Christy Tracy. Now, it was like right through that start-finish line. I mean, she almost looked like she was out of the saddle. 5 watts per kilogram, but immediately reeled back in. And that's something that, these riders have targets on their back. Godby goes, Tracy goes, and look, it's Godby bringing back Tracy. They're not going to let them get too big of a gap. But Tracy still with the power down, not wanting it to come down to a sprint. Love seeing this as Christy Tracy's on the attack right now.
It was only a matter of time before somebody lifted the tempo, and it was Christy Tracy stepping on the gas just as they went through the line, almost like she had marked it. I know that we've seen Tracy with a whiteboard before with sort of her race strategy on it. I wonder if she had this one circled saying, if we make it through 20 minutes without anyone getting away, I'm going to try and hit the gas. I'm going to try and lift the tempo. But Tracy, the first one out of this group to attack.
Well, Christy Tracy out of Austin, Texas. She works in finance, so she's a number gal, so she's going to know, kind of how to be able to work out those numbers with laps to go, time to go, power, being able to work all that out. And she knows what kind of numbers that Jackie Godby can be. So she's got to be able to figure out a way of being able to try to get a win. And you talked about Double Hickok taking her first win. Christy Tracy, with all the races that she's done, she won in Pattersburg, but that has been her only win in the Echelon Racing Series. So I'm sure she would like to be able to get a top step of the podium once again.
That's actually surprising. It seems hard to believe that Christy Tracy only has one win so far this season. She's always there, always in the mix, but it's just so hard to beat Jackie Godby in that last kick, that finishing stretch where Godby shines so well in the last kilometer or two. She's just really, really strong there. All right, time for some Macro Chef macro recipes here in the Echelon Racing League. These come from Marian University student and bike racer Spencer Miller, known on Instagram as the Macro Chef. He's also a bike racer at Marian University. He's built a massive following creating healthy recipes using his special protein powder blend to replace the desserts that he had to give up while training as a cyclist. These Reese's Blondie Brownie Bars use garbanzo beans and Macro Sup's chocolate brownie flavor to create protein-packed bars that actually taste good. Just add your favorite chocolate treat bake and enjoy. Spencer has tons more recipes on the Macro Chef Instagram and Facebook page. You can check them out there. And the winners of today's races are going to get some Macro Subs products of their choice. They'll be able to sample whatever products they want to know. Our winners from the Joe Martin stage race already got some. So it'll be interesting to see how they use their Macro Subs protein supplement. I know Jackie Godby, as the winner of the Joe Martin stage race, got some. She said they made red velvet cupcakes, I think was Jackie Godby's first recipe, but she was unable to get a picture because they disappeared immediately after coming out of the oven. But she did say that the Reese's Blondie Brownie bars were going to be the next try. So maybe she'll send us some, Frankie. Maybe she can box some of those up and ship us some Reese's Blondie Brownie bars. I screwed it up the first time, so now I just have to keep saying it to make myself feel better about Reese's Blondie Brownie bars from the Macro Chef. This is really cool stuff. Sort of a custom mix of protein. It's made for baking, made for cooking, so you can make a lot of cool stuff.
They look good. I mean, that looked delicious. So it'd be very interesting to see how they taste. Maybe sometime we'll be able to figure it out. I was just talking about Esther Walker out of San Diego, California, finds herself off the front. We were just talking about the Amy D Foundation having a good team. And so right now on the attack, but look how fast the group can close down a gap. And this really blows my mind every time. How quickly, when the group decides to be able to kind of really put down the power, going 4.5 to 5 watts per kilogram, how they can shut down a move. And so that's what they did, shutting down Walker as Godby now comes back up to the front. 4.5 per kilogram coming up on, so just over a half hour of racing. Kirsten Pohl right there with the blue and purple for Canyon Esports now starting to make her way to the front, coming past Christy Tracy.
It's almost impossible to get away in a race like this without a group going together. I mean, you can't do it by yourself. The physics almost make it impossible, but coordinating with the other riders to get away is also difficult. That's one of the things that you miss from real life racing to virtual racing is that communication and the ability to just kind of get a plan together. And so you see less successful breakaways, I think, in virtual racing as the communication just isn't there. It's a little harder to strike a deal out on the road and understand what the other riders up in the group are trying to do. Echelon Racing League with the official We Are Nations merch at wearenations.com. Each team in the Echelon Racing League has their own web shop with t-shirts, hats, and hoodies. You can find those at wearenations.com. A proceed of all sales go back to the riders, so good chance to get a little cash in their pocket, get the riders paid, and get some cool gear. I know I'll be rocking my Project Echelon gear as we head out onto the road. I got my t-shirt and hoodie. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of those out in the wild when we get back to real-life bike racing soon. Look at Pohl here in the red zone just to stay in the group.
Yeah, and then a rider just off the back also has got to be in the red trying to be able to catch back up. And that's where, you know, you think you're sitting okay, and all of a sudden a surprise attack from Christy Tracy. You see that acceleration. It's like you don't expect it to kind of string out and all of a sudden pick up that pace. You find yourself a few bike lengths off the back. So a couple of riders getting dropped from the main group right there because of the constant kind of speed in the attacks that have been attacking. Pohl doing a good job kind of patrolling the front. Ariel Coy, I got to say, very impressed by the ride that she's doing up here with some of the strongest riders. You got to remember, a lot of the riders in this race also represented the U.S. at the eSport World Championships. And so this is a high quality, high caliber field. And we got a lot of good riders kind of representing themselves in here. So as you take a nice look at our Canyon Esports, as I think that's Kirsten Pohl right there, out of the saddle, making sure she's making to be able to stay near the front.
See how she's able to coast going into the turn and then intently watching the screen to figure out where that apex is. Basically, the riders put any power in before they get to the apex. That doesn't register on the rider because they're going through a corner, right? So it would slow the rider down. But once they hit that apex of the turn, you can put as much power as you want into the trainer, as much power as you can. So it's about timing into the corners. And Pohl looks like she's got it figured out here, finding her way up to the front.
Yeah, the German rider, 33 years old. Done. She was a third place so far, and that was in Gateway Cup for Giro della Montagna. Anya. So it's one with a little bit of a climb, kind of similar to the final day of the Joe Martin stage race. Very different than our Indy Crit that we're doing here, which is flat, fast, aggressive, and that's what we've been seeing. We've had some aggressive racing right now. Again, 45 kilometers per hour. I mean, they're not slowing down. They really haven't given anybody a chance to be able to just kind of sit up and catch their breath. Everybody's kind of sitting in that green to yellow zone, which is, tempo to endurance. And Christy Tracy now finds herself back on the front alongside Ayala, doing a good ride right next to her. Matson Co. paying attention. So nice group here still, kind of as they're whipping around this race course. And obviously, they don't have to worry about the brick criterion. You really do need to worry about the bricks, because it's a very, that changing of the cement, changing of the tarmac, as you would say, going from the, smooth cement to going on to the bricks, going through the turns on some of the bricks. That makes it a little bit tricky. And so positioning is important. Obviously, weather would be important also, but that's kind of what makes the race stand out apart from many of the other criterions, is you have these different dynamics with the amount of corners, with the bricks going around the monuments, a beautiful downtown area. And Brad, as you had mentioned, that wind, you get those wind tunnels. You got to be aware of what part of the course you're on when all of a sudden you're going to get blasted by that wind that comes through the downtown buildings.
Yeah, definitely a good place and a bad place to attack on that course, that's for sure. And they change depending on the weather conditions for the day. Things stringing out a little bit up here in the front group. It looks like we might have lost a few riders out of here. I think I saw 18 up at the front. It might be 17. We'll see if we can figure out who the last rider in there is and then go a little farther back. So this is going to be 18th and 19th. So yeah, that means 17 up front. This will be McGregor and Crone back in 18th and 19th. Nice job by these two Velocity Vixen riders riding together. Look at this, Frankie, lockstep back here.
Yeah, side by side. And they were in that front group. They were doing a good job. And again, it's just, perhaps just kind of glancing away or just caught by surprise. That Christy Tracy attack, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise as we go a little bit further back behind McGregor. Leonard doing a good ride. Still top 20, so it's a good ride by her as she's trying to be able to keep up with everybody else.
Looks like a pair of Canyon Esports riders behind her with Drew and Bering. Dew and Bering, sorry. And working their way through one of the Amy D Foundation riders. Here goes the front of the group. That's Kirsten Pohl coming back around as Pohl is going to be lapping these riders. So it looks like Pohl might be launching another attack up at the front as we're taking inventory here at the back with 24 and 25 here. 23 and 24, sorry.
Sorry, Siebelnest is an Indy native also, as we go over here to Bennett. Talked about Grace Bennett, 27 years old, also Indy. 2019, she was a Category 3. And so she moved up the rankings extremely quickly to be able to get into, as she did better and better, moving up in the rankings to be able to do some bigger races. So good rider right there out of Indy, also racing for Team Upland Brewing.
Yeah, one of our local wildcard teams joining for this weekend of racing at the Indy Crit. I always like a team with a beer sponsor. Although it's not as fun in virtual racing. That's more of an IRL perk when you've got a beer sponsor team showing up at the race. They're usually good for a couple cold ones after the race, Frankie. If you're the announcer, you can usually get an upland or two if you do a good job.
I agree. After the race, usually I tend to dip during maybe the last 10 laps, I have it sitting there ready for when the race is over. Saw Ariel Little just a minute ago.
No Joe Buck business in the booth for you.
I was going to mention that, but I decided not to. But since you brought it up, he just sets it on the side to be able to watch it, right? So, no, I do the same thing. Nice group here is first, so Zoe Satcha was on the front, and now look at how it's getting strung out. Speed still hovering right at around 42, and you can see that fight for position, trying to be near the front. All of a sudden it starts stringing out. It means you get a little bit further back in the group. That means very, very important. You have to be able to stay on that wheel. You can't let a gap open up, so you got to put down that power, and we're seeing that. See some of those red numbers, they just pop up every once in a while, and that's riders making sure that they're coming out of that turn, accelerating with that front group to be able to stay in the draft as Global Hickok now comes up to the front. Ariel Coy, again, doing a fantastic ride. Races for Marian University also. She won the Cardinal time trial, and we talked about her getting that 8th in the Indy Criterium last year. Nice to be able to see. You mentioned about 17 riders, as I think McGregor was the first one that is off the back in the chase by herself right now, just off the back of this main group.
Strello trying to hang in here. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier, not overcompensating to get back into the group. You see, she just briefly spent time in the red zone and then immediately backed off into the green zone. Even though she wasn't quite there yet, she knew that the momentum of the game would carry her up there. So Strello doing a nice job here, trying to hang in. But the corners make it so difficult to get it right. So falling off is one thing. Falling off in a corner is 10 times as tough to get back in. Look at some of our teams in the weekend of racing this week. Project Echelon fielding 3 as Anna Young being joined by Megan Easler and Amy Young, Anna Strello, who we were just looking at earlier. Amy D Foundation with 4. Ariel Little, Esther Walker, Claudia Ferreira, and Eleanor Wiseman. Wiseman has been a strong contender in the Echelon Racing League over the last few weeks. Canyon Esports with 5 this week. We've been following Kirsten Pohl on the front. Stephanie Sidlick, the new signing this year for Canyon Esports, moving from Velocity Vixen to that squad. And then the insured Pedal Power squad with 3. Britt Mason, Laura Matson Co., a stage winner here at the Echelon Racing League, and Heather Patton. Team Infinite with just 2, Christy Tracy and Claire Cameron. Although Tracy doesn't need much help. And then see the Velocity Vixen squad rolling 6 deep this weekend with Bonacisi, Noble, McGregor, Crone, Chafin, and Ayala in the orange and purple kits. There's a good look at the Velocity Vixen group there, with Ayala heading to the front. And then the local squads, Bissell ABG Giant with Pionic and Penta, and the Upland Brewing women's cycling team fielding Grace Bennett and Sierra Siebelst.
That's another new team that has joined Indy Crit for the first time, the Bissell ABG. Emily Paynick and Mary Penta. Paynick, 35 years old, doing good rider, 3rd at the Cheehaw Challenge, and she comes out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, Emily Paynick does. As we go back here, I think we're taking another look here at, I think this was Grace Bennett, this was Ariel Coy, I think, that we're looking at right here. Yep. Yeah, Ariel Coy. So Marian University, good rider. Still managed to be able to keep in that front group. So she's doing a fantastic ride. It seems like for her, the RGT platform's no problem. She's just got the fitness and the power to be able to stay with the front group. Playing darts while she's riding the bike. Now,
looks like her Swan Ure might be getting into some racing later on today. We'll be getting ready for our men's race coming up after this one. This is one of the more unique camera angles that we've gotten as well over the last few weeks of racing. We've seen some good ones. We've seen some bad ones. I don't know that we've gotten many over-the-shoulder shots. I kind of like it, though. I kind of like being able to see what's on her screen, sort of what she's looking at. You can see her computer down in the bottom right. She's using the third-person view, kind of hovering overhead, basically the same camera that we've been using. We just put up the first-person view in the top left of the screen. This is the view that most riders have tended to use in racing because it sort of blocks out some outside information that they don't need. Riders were overcompensating when they were able to see the group around them. They would see a rider at the back start to move forward, and then they would lift the tempo. So a lot of riders have been switching to this first-person view to try and focus a little bit, to stay in the group a little bit better and keep your focus on the riders in front of you. Maybe that was your problem, Frankie. Maybe you just need to change your view for the amateur races.
It's a good advice, because I think it can help modulate that power that you put out in where you are in the group. Because when you see your 15 guys back, you think you got to put out a ton of power, and all of a sudden you're flying by everybody and you find yourself on the front. And so I'm going to try that next time for the next races. So to go first-person view and see how that works out. So I look forward to the next races because it's fun to do. The courses are really cool. It's fun to do. Great turnouts too. There's a lot of riders out there. I mean, I'm not even doing the A's. I'm doing the B group, excuse me, or the Cat 2 as they call it, doing the Cat 2s. And I still got 55 riders on the start line. And so I think the popularity of this is continuing to grow, and it's great to be able to see riders experimenting and trying something new and something different. And you know what? And I think that's part of the excitement, is that you're not used to it. It's something new. And all of a sudden you find yourself having a good time wanting to do the next ones and the next one. As you can see, Tour of America's Dairyland coming up next for the amateur event, March 6th and 7th.
Yeah, 4 categories of racing in the amateur series, so riders of all skill levels have a chance to try, even if you've never raced in virtual racing platform before. Give it a shot. RGT is free to download, free to race, and the amateur series are free to enter as well at echelonracingleague.com. So it's been cool seeing more and more riders taking part in that too, and watching riders progress through the ranks. You start as a category 4, then a 3, 2, 1. It's like watching that rider that gets to category 3 in one season. That rider that just gets into racing and then they're cat 3 before you know it. There have been some virtual racing standouts as well that have sort of come up through the amateur ranks into the pro fields. I know we talked last week about Matt in Maine, who won the amateur race, got into the pro race. The top 10 riders from the amateur A race each week get a free entry into the pro race. And then Maine won a pro race. So it just goes to show you might be the next great virtual racing star. But you got to give it a shot first. So join us for our next amateur series at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Toad's got some cool courses too, Frankie. I'm looking forward to those. The atmosphere at Toad, I know you get a chance to get up there every year. Some of the best criterium racing, not just in the country, but I would say in the world.
It's a ton of fun, Tour of America's Dairyland, and it's great for the riders because you're coming in. It's not just one day, and that's a great thing about the Indy Criterium also. It's 2 days of racing, Mass Avenue and the Indy Criterium. So you're not just coming in for 1 day of races. You have 2 races. Kind of makes it a full weekend. So, that helps out the riders with, their travel costs and being able to kind of compete for 2 days of racing makes it a little bit more fun. If you made a mistake the first day, you make up for it on the second day. Or if you won the first day, then you're trying to repeat that on the second day. And so, Mass Avenue and the Indy Crit, perfect combination for any of the riders that travel in from out of town to participate in, a great bike race. And, at the same time, with the way the races are, you can go on the casual ride, the Major Taylor ride. You mentioned, the 3 rides at like 15 miles, 30 miles, and 50 miles. So, you could bring your wife, you can bring your kids. They can go do the casual ride. You can focus on the super competitive bike racing. A little bit of something for everybody.
They see the 4 different groups out on the road right now on your screen. The leaders up in the top left side of the screen, and then your chasers on the right side. Nice to see the chasers linking up, working well together. You see group of 3 in the bottom left, group of 2 in the bottom right, and then the Velocity Vixen duo up in the top right. So nice to see that those riders have been able to ride together. That's tough to do in itself, riding with a group on RGT and staying with a group. So nice job by these riders. They can also communicate through chat. There's a text chat in the game where a lot of times the riders will be able to chat a little bit as they work their way through the end of the race. Let's bring Jennifer Spar back in, our race director from the Indy Crit. Jennifer, we were talking about 2 days of racing. I understand you guys are kind of rebranding, bringing this all under one name for the weekend of racing.
Yeah, so our board, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our board, we've been going through this kind of visioning of what we can be. And when we acquired the Mass Ave Crit back in 2019, it really gave us the opportunity to put these two great races in one weekend. And, and we have a lot of momentum. So what better name than Momentum Indy for the Indy Crit and Mass Ave Crit?
And that'll encompass the rides, the races, the festivities, all the activities that go around the bike race. Momentum Indy is more than just a couple crits. It sounds like you guys got a lot going on over the weekend.
Yeah, I think the really cool thing about what we do is the Mass Ave Crit is like this. It's in a really cool area of the city with all these bars and restaurants and shops. So it's kind of that nightlife, fun, rowdy, kind of race in an urban setting. And then just a few blocks away is the Indy Crit course, and it's very iconic and family friendly. We have this huge kids zone where families can let the kids play and do all kinds of activities all day long. So it's just like, the Indy Crit is the family fun day. The Mass Ave Crit is like the edgier of the two. And we brought them together, and it's a really awesome weekend in Indianapolis.
Can't wait to get back to it in person, hopefully in 2021. Jennifer, thank you so much. I know we're going to be keeping our fans updated on the progress of Momentum Indy into 2021 as more information becomes available. We're all waiting on bated breath for the news that comes out, but we just don't know yet. So we're hoping for good news in 2021, but if not, I'm sure we'll be back in 2022.
We are really pushing for late summer. We'll have a date soon.
All right, fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Jennifer, and keep up the great work. We'll let you sit back and enjoy the finish here as we are just inside 16 kilometers away from riders hitting the line here. Frankie, we talked about the Major Taylor ride. We talked about the race. Indy is also home to the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. It's about a 2.5-hour tour. You can do an 8-mile cultural trail with discussions of the history of the trail, art featured along the trail, and it also takes you through the cultural districts along the way. You'll visit Mass Ave, the Wholesale District, Fountain Square. It goes through Market East, then down Indiana Avenue. You'll see the White River State Park Canal District, and then the Fletcher Place neighborhood before wrapping back up at the start of the trail. You can make your way back. So another one of the cool parts of the weekend in Indy. Another great reason to make the trip when this one gets back to racing in person. All right, so it sounds like we're getting down to it here at. Go ahead, Frankie. Sorry.
No, I was going to say a lot of things for many people to do, but I can't believe, Jennifer mentioned the Kid Festival, Brad, and you didn't mention the bouncy house. I'm very surprised because you're the #1 fan of bouncy houses. We figured that out in the last races, remember?
Yeah, we're working on some copyright stuff right now, so I didn't quite want to announce it yet. I'm waiting for my legal team to get that all sorted out. It's caught up with the T-shirt thing as well. It's a slow process, with COVID and everything. The courts are all tied up now, but yeah, I understand there is a bouncy house. I will be giving a full review once I get a chance to test that out at the next Indy Crit. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it is. But yeah, I'm writing that into my contract from now on. Every race I announce has got to have a bouncy house. Still waiting on the virtual bouncy house. The RGT bouncy house is TBD. I think my email got lost or bounced back or something. They never responded.
I think it'd be easy enough to add in, and you could put the logo on there, Brad's Bouncy House Review, and that'd be right on the top of the bouncy house. But these riders are a little bit more focused right now. I don't think they would notice if there was a bouncy house on the side, or maybe they would, but they're getting down into crunch time right now, getting into the final one. Crystal Doble Hickok in the middle of the screen, out of the saddle. Excuse me, that's Lauren Matson-Coe in the middle of the screen at the saddle just a minute ago. Somebody's riding uphill the entire way on the left-hand side of the screen right there. So, yeah, got the camera a little bit off, but, you can't worry about that right now. But a great view, as you can see, like getting some gels in, it looks like, trying to be able to fuel up. We've seen her do that a lot. In the last 15 minutes of the race, that is when Stephanie Sidlick decides to be able to get some some gels and get some sugar into her to be able to make sure she's got that energy for the end. And so that's a good strategy that she seems to apply to her racing strategy. And you can see the rest of the riders all in their, as they call them, the pain caves in the different areas of their houses.
Yeah, constantly eating and drinking, part of the battle of virtual racing. I know Jackie Godby has been one of the best about staying fueled up, understanding what her body needs. She has also been one of the most vocal of advocating for chocolate in racing. She's got her pre-race chocolate routine, her post-race chocolate routine. It is the secret sauce that powers Jackie Godby. She had her Dove chocolate in her post-race press conference last week. She's always got a snack at hand, but when you put out the watts that Jackie Godby does, you can burn through just about anything you want. So chocolate is well earned for riders here in the Echelon Racing League. All right, showing 9 laps to go on the counter here as we're down to single digits. And this changes the racing a little bit, Frankie. The difference between racing on time versus racing with a set number of laps remaining. In the rider's mind, that changes a little bit. 20 minutes left of racing is a lot different than 5 laps left of racing as a bike racer.
It's nice having the finite end, and so you know when that is. And so as long as it's still time, you're just waiting until laps to go. You're just kind of waiting to see, get the kilometers under you, get some of that time underneath you. But you're exactly right, Brad. I mean, once you turn into laps to go, they know exactly how to be able to gauge that effort. They've done enough laps around here where they kind of know where the tricky parts of the course are, where they might be able to take a flyer. And so now in their head, they're going to be thinking about, all right, when we're getting down to about 5 laps to go, maybe 3 laps to go, what section of the course do I want to try to attack? Or am I comfortable enough to be able to sit in and wait for this to come down to a massive field sprint? We've seen in the past with in real life with the Indy Criterium, Emily Ulrich, native out of Michigan, won in 2019 with a great attack, finishing just in front of Olivia Ray, who's a fantastic sprinter. She's just coming off of winning the New Zealand Criterium National Championships. And Regina Legg was in third. And 2018, a young sprinter, Faith Montral, won. Tabitha Sherwood was second. And in 2017, Madison Kelly took the win. So we've seen, flyers win the Indy Criterium. We've seen bunch sprints kind of with the sprinters taking the win at the Indy Criterium. And so virtually, we've seen in the past, a lot of times, it's very hard to be able to break away speeds at 45 kilometers per hour. We could see a group sprint, but a lot of these riders have seen how strong Lauren Matson-Coe is and how strong Jacqueline Godby is. They don't want to sit around. Maybe they're going to risk something. Maybe they might not get top 5, but they might risk everything to be able to win the race.
Yeah, I'm looking at someone like Kirsten Pohl, maybe Krista Doble-Hickok, riders that are strong, but not sprinters. They don't have that finishing kick, so they're going to have to make their move a little earlier in the race, try and get away. So maybe Stephanie Sidlick tries to take a flyer here for the Canyon Esports squad, looking at here. But, I think at this point we're starting to figure out, Frankie, who the sprinters are and who the distance riders are, the non-sprinters, let's call them. Matson-Coe, probably one of the strongest finishers in this race. Jackie Godby can finish strong too, but she would much rather see it come down to a select group. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone tries to go here in the last 5-6 laps of racing here, as they're at 8 to go right now.
Yeah, and Lauren Matson-Coe has out-sprinted Jacqueline Godby before. So I promise you that is in the back of Jacqueline Godby's mind. She knows that. And so, is Godby willing to be able to sit around and wait? Godby is so competitive. She loves winning and she wants to. We saw at the Joe Martin and that final criterium, oh my goodness, out of the saddle, ripping the bike almost off the trainer as she was thrashing it, trying to be able to stay in front of Matson-Coe. And it came down to, if it could be a bike throw, it came down to a bike throw, but Godby took that win there. And so, does she want to be able to risk coming down to a sprint? But Sidlick, I think, would be a perfect example of somebody being able to take a flyer and going off the front. She had great form at Joe Martin stage race, had a little bit of a screen freeze on one of the stages, and that put her off the back of the group. So she was nowhere in the overall GC hunt, but all the other days where she didn't have the technical problems, she was in the final 7 riders. She was in that front group, as we have Jacqueline Godby on the top part of our screen and Christy Tracy in the lower portion of the screen. Both of them on time trial bikes. This seems to be what they're the most comfortable on. A lot of the other riders you'll see will be on road bikes, but for Godby and Tracy, pretty much this is what they grew up on. This is what they're comfortable with. They both are great triathletes. Tracy, very good at the long distance kind of triathlon type riding, 24-hour type time trialing. And so both of them very comfortable on these time trial bikes, and they've shown that they can perform just as well on a time trial bike as anybody can on a road bike.
Jackie Godby on the TT bike has the aero bars, but we very rarely see Godby go into the aero bar position. Tracy, on the other hand, likes to get down into that low aero position. She likes to rest her forearms on those aero bars, but I don't think Godby has really used those aero bars in the center of her handlebars at all. I think she mostly is staying on the tops, the hoods. Sometimes maybe she goes into the middle, like sort of near the stem, but for the most part, she seems pretty comfortable out wide, whereas Christy Tracy likes to get tucked in a little bit. It's really just about comfort here. Obviously, aerodynamics indoors doesn't matter, but it does affect the amount of power that you're able to create, Frankie. The fit on the bike and the way that you sit, the position that you're in can affect the wattage that you're able to create.
In addition to the breathing, by sitting up a little bit, you're opening up that rib cage, able to breathe a little bit better than being all cramped over in a tighter position, as we've seen Christy Tracy do sometimes. That group still have 17 riders, unbelievable. So this is all stuck together, as we saw just in the back there. Kirsten Pohl, Sacho still there. Christy Tracy and Godby are the two riders on the front. 17 riders really stuck like glue right now with 7 laps to go. Who's going to be the initiator? Will we see some of the teammates on some of the other teams take the initiative? We got to remember, Jackie Godby is by herself on Triple X Athletico. Crystal Doble Hickok, the first 2 riders overall in the Echelon Racing League, are by themselves on their own teams. The other riders in this group have some teammates, so maybe we'll take some flyers to be able to put some pressure on some of the other teams to be able to try to go for victory. So 17 riders now. This is a good group coming in with 7 laps to go right now.
Yeah, that might be the best way to use teammates in RGT. I was talking about trying to cover moves earlier, but sending riders off the front and forcing the stars, riders like Jackie Godby or Christy Tracy, to chase is probably the best way that you can use a teammate, because it's a lot harder to use them tactically, let's say, but using them as a rabbit to force the other riders to chase is probably the most efficient way that you'd be able to use a rider late in the race like this. So good call, Frankie. I wouldn't be surprised to see a team with multiple riders trying to send someone off the front, like maybe a Velocity Vixen, an Amy D Foundation squad. They might be able to send some riders off here to try to get someone like Godby to force her to try to chase those riders down.
I would wait till
Nice
like 3
comments
laps
coming
to
in.
go.
Yep. Comment from Andis Burns on Facebook here talking about some of the Midwest weather. He says, when does the thunderstorm simulation hit? Right around 3 to go. We usually get a good afternoon thunderstorm in the Midwest. That's not unheard of at a bike race, but just find a rain jacket and wait it out. It'll be gone in a second.
And I'm expecting the thunderstorm to hit with 3 laps to go in this race in the action of fireworks with riders taking off. And I agree. I think a good way to attack some of the sprinters or the other riders with teammates is send them up the road. 3 laps to go, let them take a flyer. 2 laps to go, let them take a flyer. See if you can get Christy Tracy to chase. See if you can get Jacqueline Godby to chase. Even Lauren Matson Coe to be able to do some work, kind of counterattack, kind of do the 1-2 punch and see if that's a way to be able to wear them down coming into those final laps. So a lot of the riders right now still in the blues and the greens. We don't really see anybody in the orange and red. So looking very comfortable right now as they're coming around. Coming over an hour also, we saw Jacqueline Godby taking in some nutrition, taking in some gels to be able to keep that energy up.
Aaron Ayala, Morgan Chafin getting some cheers from our Facebook chat. You find Echelon Racing League on Facebook, and throw your questions, comments in the comment section. We'll get those up on air and get those out to the riders.
Well, we saw Morgan Chaffin. She was just in 3rd, now dropping back to about seeing for Velocity Vixen, coming out in the. She has exercise science, so sure she knows how to be able to train, peak hydrate, all those critical parts in doing well in real life or in the virtual world. You know, it really does translate over in the preparation to be able to get ready for these races.
They talk about some of the carryover there. Jackie Gabi, who we've been talking about a lot, is in her final year of her PhD in radiology. She's going to be a radiology researcher, but the focus that it takes to do something like a PhD, to train for a triathlon, an Ironman, something like that, it requires focus, discipline, and the ability to bury yourself, to train. And Jackie Gabi obviously has that. I think pretty much everyone in this group has it. If you've got the foresight, if you've got the up and go to get up and get on RGT and get racing in a year like this, then I'd say you've got that focus. You've got that type A personality that makes for great champions.
Yeah, many of these riders definitely know time management. They know how to be able to be successful in their work life, their family life, and obviously in their sporting life. And so time management is critical. And I think that's a big part of what cycling also, can teach you is time management, how to be able to balance that training, balance recovery, balance rest with the rest of your day, either be a work day or, hanging out with your family at home. And so a lot of these riders, carving out a good portion of their day to be a part of the Echelon Racing Series, which is much appreciated because it's been super entertaining and a ton of fun to watch. And we're getting down to 5 laps to go, and it's going to be the best of the best here for the end of the Indy Crit in the women's race. Chaffin really showing her cards right now, putting a lot more time up near the front. We hadn't seen her near the front very much at all. As Strelau now, just kind of, you're getting that washing kind of machine effect coming around the outside, everybody moving up to the front and kind of drifting back towards the back. Still have a group of 17. This is pretty much how it's been the entire race. We haven't seen anybody with a chance to be able to break away. We've seen attacks, but we've seen nobody been able to establish a gap, and it's been the high speeds of over 40 kilometers per hour the entire time. Really has kept this group together. Everybody really realizing that the riders are not, and we see Canyon Esports 2 riders making sure they're at the front right now as they come up there.
Yeah, I wonder if Christy Tracy's attack was kind of a warning to others and maybe even discouraging to Tracy as well, seeing how quickly everybody responded. She gave it a try and then saw what happened and was like, yeah, that's not working out. Everyone wants to go with me. So maybe the one attack that we did see, I think, was from Tracy, although Kirsten Pohl has been putting in some digs up there on the front as well. There have definitely been some riders into the red zone for sure, but I think Tracy had the biggest separation that we've seen all day. Group looking pretty fresh inside 5K of racing to go here. Just about everyone in the saddle as they get ready for the crucial final 3 laps of racing here.
And one thing I've noticed also with our 17 riders is as these laps have gone by, they've figured out a little on how to be able to be a little bit more efficient. We're not seeing the numbers as much go into the red, jumping in and around the corners, maybe every once in a while. But in the first part of the race, almost out of every corner, we saw a lot of red coming from those numbers, going up to 4.9 watts per kilogram, which is a pretty big effort for a lot of these riders. And so they've been able to figure out the criterium course as they get ready to lap a couple riders might be from Insured Pedal Power that they're going by right there, as Pohl continues to just kind of sit in the middle, kind of waiting to be able to see what her next duty is going to be able to be. Christy Tracy staying on the front as Jackie Gabi comes back up to the front at about 4 watts per kilogram. Take a look, Kirsten Pohl, the German rider, doing a good job, just kind of, you can see breathing, focused, and again, it's always amazing that laser attention that they have on the computer screen, which is so important, and that's the way they're able to stay in the group and stay in the front.
Yeah, see the way she coasted around the corner there, got a 0 on the power meter. She was able to stop pedaling for just a couple seconds, but that adds up in a criterium like this, Frank. You're talking about over an hour. If you can get those 5 or 6 rests every lap in there, that matters. That's going to add up at the end of the day today. Now Chafin going. Oh, yeah, they're really lifting the tempo. Look at the power here. 4, 5, 6 riders in the red zone here. See Strello up in the orange on the front. Here comes Pohl again. putting Cameron in trouble at the back.
Yeah, we're seeing riders all over the play. I mean, right? We don't really see one rider just kind of sitting on the front. We've seen that in the past, right? Jacqueline Godby comes up to the front, sets a tempo of about 4 watts per kilogram, and we see her kind of staying up there, never falling out of the, like, 1, 2, first or second place or third place. Here we really see a big shuffling and a fight for position. All sorts of different riders coming to the front, getting shuffled to the back, and so maybe a little bit more even in the competitive spirit on this flatter part of the course, and maybe that's the difference with the corners as we see different riders. Now Godby coming back up to the front, but we've seen different riders kind of taking over that position that Godby likes to dominate. Will that be a deciding factor a little bit later on in the race with 2 laps to go?
Eleanor Wiseman leading the group through the line as they see 2 laps to go. Wiseman has been pretty quiet for most of the day today. We haven't seen her on the front a lot. That's a good sign. A lot of times the rider who wins is the rider that we don't really talk about a lot during the day because they've been sitting back. They've been lowering their average watts per kilo, sitting in the group, riding as efficiently as possible. But now it's time to start reaching into those reserves. Time to start using the watts and the energy that you've been saving throughout the day today.
I think a rider's done a good job. We spoke a little bit about her because of her sprinting, but she stayed hidden, haven't we? Is Lauren Matson-Coe. Really haven't, attacking off the front. We haven't seen her really get into trouble off the back with that we've seen in other races where she finds herself gapped and has to put in a big, red effort to be able to catch back up. She seems a little bit more consistent during this race of sitting in and being able to be a little bit more efficient, as we have a nice shot here of Lauren Matson-Coe just kind of following the wheels and waiting for that sprint. Last time we saw her get onto the drops when it came down to sprint time. Are we going to see a similar kind of position for her on that bike, or will she remain on the tops of the handlebars? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, Matson-Coe is a monster when it comes time to sprint. You were talking about her moving around on the bike last week. She puts some serious power out when it comes down to these short sprints. So Matson-Coe is, I think, probably my pick. If you had to pick a pure sprinter in this group, if you put these riders in a group of 20 and said, 1 out of 100 times who's going to take it, I think I would take Matson-Coe out of this group of 20, just based on past results, the way that she's been able to shine in the criteriums and shine in those finishing sprints. So we'll be keeping an eye on Laura Matson-Coe. Again, a former winner here in the Echelon Racing League with the Insured presented by Pedal Power Team. And she's back in it today with 1.6K to go.
And the speed's been consistently a bit higher. Right now, sitting right through the start-finish line. It's going to be 1 lap to go. So this is the bell lap right now. Do we have an unofficial bell? There we go.
There we go.
I like that. Our unofficial bell lap, official bell lap. 1 lap to go. Look at the speed, 47, 46 kilometers per hour. Like we talked about teammates taking a flyer. How do you do that when you're going that fast? That would take a huge effort to be able to even take a flyer right there. So speed is definitely picked up, and everybody's swarming to the front right now. Nice job by Cameron coming up to the front. The Canadian rider showing herself near the front, but really going to be a fight for position. They're on that backstretch right now of the course where there's no sitting up right now. It's about staying in the front to be able to keep that position, because you cannot win the sprint if you're starting from 8th or 9th position. It's just impossible. It's just like in real life. So that's why they're fighting right now, and that speed is going so high.
Now you want to be near the front, but not at the front. The fine art of positioning in bike racing, positioning for that sprint and getting where you need to be. Look at the riders spread out across the road. See how it forms a little echelon across the road? The gaps are getting bigger and bigger. It's getting harder and harder for these riders to cover those gaps, and that's why you're seeing these riders surging up to the front as well, because the speeds are just changing so quickly. They just can't respond quick enough, and so that's lifting the overall speed here as well, as we head into the final lap of racing, or wrap up the final lap of racing, I should say.
Did you just notice that Matson-Coe actually reaching down to tighten her shoes to make sure she's clipped in and strapped down to be able to get ready for this sprint? Double Hickok out of the saddle right now. Godby's just winding it up, making sure she's staying on the front. Matson-Coe out of the saddle right now. Coming down to, it looks like 300 meters, so we're coming down to the final sprint. Matson-Coe is out of the saddle right now. Emily Walker doing a good job. Look at Bonacisi coming up to the front, and Kirsten Pohl. We've seen a very active Kirsten Pohl throughout this race. Where's Matson-Coe and Godby right now as Emily Walker Streelau, the finish just in front of them. It's a final mad dash to the line as it looks like Ayala maybe was up there. No bearing. Man, riders all over the place. I couldn't see from that camera angle who took the win. Now, I have no idea from that camera angle, but what a sprint.
That was a bunch gallop to the line. They were spread out 4-5 wide across, and I think Coy got it. Confirming. Coy, your winner today in the Indy Crit, the outsider, upsets the favorites. Hometown victory.
Nice. The Indianapolis native, the 30-year-old University, Ariel Coy taking that win. We talked about 8th at the Indy Criterium in real life, but first here in the virtual Indy Crit. So congratulations to her. Man, talk about figuring out the RGT platform for her. It seemed like it was no problem.
I'd say she's got it figured out. I'd say she figured it out pretty well. Ariel Coy, in her first race of the Echelon Racing League, takes a win for Marian University in the Indy Crit, outsprinting the likes of Jackie Godby and Christy Tracy. That's an upset this week.
I was very surprised at how late the sprint started. We came around with, I saw 300 meters from that kind of different camera angle that we saw, and it wasn't, nobody had taken off yet. And normally we've seen a lot earlier sprints with a lot of riders with a mad dash to the line. And so it seemed like a very late sprint. And so it'll be interesting to see how Ariel Coy handled that sprint and when she decided to take off. But with that dartboard right in front of her, she hit the bullseye.
And the first thing you got to do is call your agent and tell him that you're big time now in the Echelon Racing League. Ariel on the phone, not sure who she's calling here, but you want to share the good news as soon as you get it. So that is super cool to see not only a local rider, but a new rider taking a win here at the Momentum Indy Crit. So Ariel Coy on the top of the leaderboard for Marian University at just over an hour in the saddle, 1 hour, 14 minutes, doing 3.41 watts per kilogram. Again, look at the efficiency for Coy. Jackie Godby in second place with an average of 4.2 watts per kilogram. Coy only had to do 3.4 to get the win out there. Aaron Ayala sitting in third place on the day with 3.3 watts per kilogram. Cheyenne Noble in fourth for the Velocity Vixen team at 3.43. Then it's Kirsten Pohl, Krista Doble-Hickok, Britt Mason, Laura Matson-Coe in eighth on the day. Stephanie Sidlick in ninth, and Eleanor Wiseman taking 10th place for the Amy D Foundation team. Frankie, look how close these riders were. Inside the top 10, not even a half second between first and 10th.
Yeah, it really came down to a bike throw, if that was possible, between them. But Ariel Coy, a good sprint. But got to say, very impressed with Aaron Ayala. First time getting onto the podium. Cheyenne Noble doing a great ride also. Kirsten Pohl getting up there. So a few surprises in the Indy Criterium, but Velocity Vixen really stepping up to the plate here with that third and fourth. So congratulations for them for having a fantastic race. But Ariel Coy really proving that she figured out the RGT platform and timed that sprint perfectly to be able to take victory here.
Coy takes the women's race as we get ready to switch over to the pro men. Up next at Momentum Indy, we're going to take a short break and be back with more live racing from the Echelon Racing League.
The world is changing.
I'm looking to do things better.
To improve.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it's right.
I embrace change.
I seek adventure and discovery.
I explored and explored.
To know the unknown.
Even in the toughest moments, we ride together.
Even in the moments when we're at our limits.
We support each other. It's time to move up a level.
Push that little bit harder.
Changes we make now will make the future better for all. The efforts we put in today will pay dividends tomorrow.
We all have the power to up the game.
To build something better.
It's not time to play. It's time to get real.
It's time to be a game changer.
As an athlete, getting marginally better is one thing. Getting exponentially better puts you in a whole new ballgame. Biomoto uses a proprietary digital process to capture movement at 200 frames per second and 70 sensors per foot to measure ground-based forces, resulting in advanced motion analysis that's up to 10 times more accurate than orthotics. It's the data generated by this process that allows Biomoto to construct custom insoles that make athletes faster, stronger, and more stable, and result in an unprecedented 95% success rate.
Ariel, we're going to try and do an interview with you in about 2 minutes. ...2020 Echelon Racing League is brought to you by Biomoto USA. Find the motor in you. By Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. By Hyperice, move better and enhance your recovery with Hyperice. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including with the Echelon Racing League. Well, Frankie, as we wrap up our women's race, some pretty incredible riding out there. The men's certainly going to be watching that one, but it just goes to show you that a new rider can win. An upset can happen in the Echelon Racing League. All right, we're going to see if we can join Ariel in our Zoom room. Looks like they're switching over from the women's race to the men's race. I'm not sure if we have audio in. Ariel, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Sorry, I'm trying to get my husband on video.
Hey, we appreciate you doing the camera work for two riders. Ariel, congratulations on the win. Welcome to virtual racing. How much experience do you have on the virtual platforms?
Not much. That was my second time on RGT. I did start doing, my coach invited me to join his team for the Zwift World Racing League. And so I've been doing that, and that's kind of like my first actual like big racing with women, and it's been fun. But the RGT and Zwift platforms are very different.
Obviously a cool opportunity to race at a somewhat hometown race for you. I'm sure you're missing the Momentum Indy weekend this year, but a nice replacement here on the virtual platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad it was getting some notoriety, and people from probably across the nation who haven't heard of that race before were able to kind of jump in and get a feel for what it is virtually. But
yeah, how realistic did you find the course? I mean, how close was it? How close was the effort to a real life race? Obviously, it's a different beast, but I mean, could you feel the course?
Yes and no. You know, it's comparing apples to oranges between real life racing and virtual racing. Honestly, it didn't feel much like it at all, but it's so hard when you're not shoulder to shoulder with other riders. And something I do appreciate about the Zwift platform, though, is, or RGT, I'm sorry, is that it scrubs some wattage into corners. So it's a more real feel that I'm finding. So you actually get more moments of recovery in your legs. So I guess in that respect, it felt kind of like Indy Crit, some recovery into the corners and then surging out of corners.
Well, congratulations. You made it look easy out there. So I guess you'll switch over to Swan Year mode now and enjoy your victory a little bit.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
To our next race start for the pro men. Let's talk about what we're looking at in our men's scenario here, Frankie. This one has been much closer in the standings over the last few weeks than we've seen in the women's series, as we talk about Jackie Godby with a dominant lead over in the women's series. But this is a close one up in the men's race with Ben Thomas and Matt Usborne. They have been going at it all week. Thomas with 232. It says 205 there. It's Thomas, with 232. Usborne with 205. But they've been going back and forth. I mean, Usborne was really the only guy that was able to give Ben Thomas a run for his money in the overall.
Yeah, it's been a stiff competition between the two of them. I mean, Ben Thomas had the lead for a while, then Matt Usborne took it away, but an injury prevented Matt Usborne from riding in the Joe Martin stage race, so he wasn't able to pick up any points, and because of that, he lost that first spot in the overall racing league. So Ben Thomas now on top with 232 points. Charlie Velez coming on strong. He's been riding extremely well. And so it really has been a battle between Team Tour and Above and Beyond Cancer, and it's going to continue today because every single one of those points. So in other words, every place you get in that finish is going to make a difference.
All right, here are your team standings with the Insured presented by Pedal Power team dominating with 532 points. They have had multiple riders get victories throughout the season here in the Echelon Racing League. So a comfortable lead up on top of the leaderboard over Team Tour 2000 presented by Callis with 425. Restart Racing also been consistent with multiple riders leading that squad over the last few weeks, sitting in third place. And then Draft Racing, we saw that. The team of Bruce Bird got a win a couple weeks ago in fourth, and then the Above and Beyond Cancer team, the squad of Matt Usborne, sitting in fifth place at 328 points in our men's series standings. So let's go back and take a look at our Velo Viewer course profile here one more time as we go back to the Midwest, into the capital city of Indianapolis, and then straight into downtown Indy, where again this course is anchored by a pair of monuments. To the north, it's the Indiana World War Memorial Plaza, and then to the south, they'll race around Monument Circle, which houses the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. So, Frankie, 7 corners on this one. We talked about some of the unique parts of this course, but anything you noticed in the virtual racing from the women's race that you could point out on the map here?
Well, going through the start-finish line, we saw that seemed to be an area where some of the riders decided to try to attack. We talked about the 7 corners. We definitely saw them coasting, accelerating. We saw some riders getting gapped off, losing that focus, not being able to pay attention to the corners and struggling and not being able to regain with the group. Men are going to be doing 35 laps. It's a little bit under a mile. And so it's technically a challenging course because of the turns, and we saw the high speed in the women. I expect that to be the same thing in the men, as Ben Thomas right now is taking over the lead. A fantastic rider, a former pro mountain biker. You can see 71 kilograms, so he's a lightweight, but he has managed to be able to figure out how to be able to do the virtual racing like no other. Very strong rider right now. And so Thomas in that overall lead looks to be able to continue his winning streak or be able to gain more points.
Matt Usborne is back this week after taking a week off due to injury. He is back in racing now, so that Thomas Usborne battle will continue to unfold here in week 7 of the Echelon Racing League. All right, let's bring in our real-life race director, Jennifer Savar, as we get ready to send our men off for a week of racing. Jennifer, I'm feeling the Indy Crit vibe here. I feel like I'm really there. We've got the party, we've got the riders, now we just need the virtual bouncy house, which we're still working on. But this has been a lot of fun watching the response to this week of racing. You guys have a lot of champions that are really proud of what you guys have created there in Indy.
We do have a lot of champions. I think we've seen, Chloe Dykert actually is from Indianapolis. And, you know, she's looking to. Is she on the Olympic team for this year, or
Who
I
knows?
don't know where that. Yeah, not sure where that is, but
Who knows if there's even Olympics?
I know, right? But you know, it's kind of like this Midwest hotbed of racing, and it was really cool to see Ariel, you know, finish strong and take the win today. So that was really exciting.
It doesn't get much better than a local rider, a hometown hero, and Ariel playing that role for us today in the Echelon Racing League. I'm sure she's going to have a lot of fans when we get back to real life racing in 2021, hopefully, or 2022, worst case scenario. But let's get back to our virtual racing right now. Thank you very much, Jennifer. As Frankie, we are back underway with our pro men doing the same distance as our pro women, 35 laps around the Indy Crit course here.
Right now, they got to focus on 6 watts per kilogram, give or take, trying to stay up with that first group. You can see the start's always so frantic to be able to make sure, and especially coming into those corners, because it's going to scrub the speed. You can see that with that number in the left hand, it goes red, and then it'll turn white. And so pedaling or putting out 500 watts when that number is turning red actually does you no good. So got to be able to balance on when to coast, right, leading into the corner, and then starting to pedal out of the corner. So, but for now, it's just about keeping up with that group, keeping that focus so that you don't find yourself gapped off the back. But a strong, strong group of riders we have here. Again, Upland Brewing, first time joining the Echelon Racing League. Glad to be able to see them here. Bissell ABG Giant has some riders in here. Be able to talk about both of those teams a little bit more, a little bit later on, and some Indy locals. And it's always great to be able to see riders coming out, trying maybe RGT for the first time. And, you know, a lot of times, I think if they knew they were going to be doing this race, they probably did a couple training rides or at least a preview of this course beforehand to kind of get a little bit of a feel for the platform, which would be smart. I mean, that's being a smart bike racer.
Yeah, you heard Ariel say it's her second time on RGT, so you just got to get that first ride in there, and then you're an expert, and you can come and win a race at the Echelon Racing League. But you got to do that first race first. This is Ben Thomas, OTB, our series leader, in serious trouble early on here at 54th place for Team Tour 2000. This is a major issue for Ben Thomas. This has got to be a technical here, Frankie. I don't think that Ben Thomas belongs at the back of this race.
I'm laughing because it's almost so funny, but I'm sure not for him, because look at the power in the beginning. Big power. And Ben Thomas, honestly, a 3-time national mountain bike champion out of Great Britain, he doesn't even know how to ride at 128 watts. And so I don't know what is going on with him, but good catch, because that is a major problem for the overall leader. So he's out of it. There's no way he's going to be able to come back. And so really for Matt Usborne, if he's able to recover from his injury, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on, big opportunity to be able to pick up some points, be able to possibly take back over the Echelon Racing League Series leader. Wow, what a difference. Who the heck riding outside in the snow? Who is that?
So this is Conway on your screen right now, and you'll notice there is an active snowball fight happening behind him on the left-hand side of his screen there. Those little black dots. He's got a small army engaged in a snowball fight while this guy is in the middle of his ERL race. And there's a dog running around. Doesn't get much better than that.
I didn't catch it. Conway, I didn't catch the name. Well, if you figure out
look
first
like
name,
he
last
made it
name.
onto the start list today.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see a Conway on my list, and so I'm not sure. Obviously, they ride in the snow. I'm curious where. I mean, is he in Indy? Is he an Indy local? I wonder where. I got this much snow in Detroit. I don't think he's from Detroit, but you know what? You want to talk about keeping that core temperature down? What a great way to be able to do it. Just go outside, set it up. As long as you can get your Wi-Fi, you're going to keep that core temperature down. So actually, as crazy as it looks, a pretty smart idea that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, we see a lot of riders trying to get the right fan setup, trying to put fans everywhere all around them. A guy like Charlie Revel here, who has built a custom pain cave / streaming setup. I think he's got the best streaming setup for us. We get to see him from a couple angles. He's got the multicolor lights going. He's got the multi-screens. This guy has put some serious work into his pain cave. Not sure what the conditions are like outside where Charlie Revel is right now. I imagine it's pretty cold over in the UK right now. They measure in a different kind of degree, so it's impossible to know what the temperature is in Europe at any time because they don't use Fahrenheit, they use some other weird thing, so it's a mystery. Scientists are still trying to figure that out. Nobody knows what a centigrade is. Nobody knows what a Fahrenheit is either, so.
Well, Charlie Revelle with the best gaming setup there. He's had good success with the Echelon Racing League. A couple top fives, third at Clarendon, second at Benton Park. He's got that blue jersey. He's racing for Team Tour 2000. A bigger rider, 6'1", about 185 pounds. On this type of course, it's perfect. This is exactly what you want. On a Joe Martin uphill time trial, not exactly what you want. So perhaps Revelle is going to be able to find a result that he's, that top spot on the podium could come in here with the Indy criterion. See John Crane on the front. You see Simmons, Dubach, good group of riders right here. We saw our women dwindle down to about 17 riders. We're still here at about 38 riders in this front group. Obviously early on, only 5 minutes into the race, but a lot of riders doing a fantastic job to make sure that they stay in contact with that main peloton.
I want to go back to Henry Conaway, who has dropped the hat now, revealing pretty epic hairstyle up top. Conaway is a Bissell rider out of Indianapolis, so local rider, and obviously comfortable riding in the cold.
I was wondering how long he was going to keep the hat on, just because the amount of power that you're putting. I gotta say, it's the best visual that we've seen. They got skis on. Yeah, we know you're by the snow. We can see all the white behind you, but I love the best visual that we're having from any of the pain caves. I'll give him an A+ on his pain cave.
100%. This guy's got the best camera of the day by far. There's skiing, there's dogs, there's snowball fighting. All he needs is a bouncy house in his backyard, and he'll have the perfect setup. And look at that, Conway's up there. That's him right there in 6th place. We got him highlighted in the center of the group, so he's hanging tough. Maybe there is something to the local riders riding outside. Can you imagine, Frankie, if we had 2 new local riders take the wins this weekend and upset the favorites? How cool would that be? That would certainly speak to the strength of Indy riders, that's for sure.
Yeah, it would be well deserved. They have a strong team here with the Bissell ABG Giant. We talked about Conway, who's not even on our start list. We have Tucker Pites, Zach Andrews, and Ruben Bacon. And so we see Ruben Bacon right there, another of those. He's from Harrodsburg, Kentucky, but part of that Bissell ABG Giant team. And so 3 riders from that same team doing a great job of being able to stay in this front group. So Matt Usborne on the front right now, and he's an aggressive rider. Brad, I'll let you take us through the teams right now before we get into that.
Yeah. Well, Usborne, part of the Above and Beyond Cancer presented by Bike World squad. He's got 4 riders with him this weekend with Simmons, Parrish, Breen, and Grant Simmons on there twice. Simon's on there twice, I think. But Usborne should be the leader for that squad. Canyon Esports with 4, including Ollie Jones. He has a stage win already in the Echelon Racing League with Gary Muller. Spencer Segabrush also has had some good results here. Digital Commerce Bank, DC Bank with 3. Lucas Conley, Emmett Culp, and Simon Dubuque. You'll see Dubuque up here in the front of the group. He's usually pretty strong in here. And then Insured, presented by Pedal Power, with Patrick Wally and Matt Main, 2 very strong riders. It's a small squad this week for Insured Pedal Power, but they got plenty of riders that should be able to mix it up. Hugh Dog Racing signing Charlie Velez this year, also adding Tom Watson, Emil Peter Sosnowski, and Ruslan Gadziev for the Hugh Dog Racing squad. That'll make up the 4 racing this weekend. See Dubuque up there on the front we just talked about. There's your three from Project Echelon: Cundiff, Eric Hill, and Peter Olenichek. Restart with a big squad, 6 here, including Kevin Bouchard-Hall, who has been a virtual early adopter, let's call him. Mike Swart, also part of that squad, and Jonathan Crane, guys that have some pretty serious experience in the virtual racing world. And then we move to Team Tour 2000 presented by Callis. That is the team of Ben Thomas and Charlie Revel, who we met earlier. They're joined by Alec Jones, Oscar Hutchings, and Joshua Croxton this weekend at the Momentum Indy Weekend. And then support Clean Sport BSCG Guten Plan Coaching with Chris Ray and Sam Siebel. They got more sponsors than they do riders this weekend over on that squad. First Internet Bank, one of the local squads out of Indy, with Ryan Knapp, Johnny Purvis, Chris Uberti, and Tanner Ward. Those are 4 names that we know well from IRL Criterium Racing over the years and throughout the season. And then Team Upland Brewing, another one of our local squads, with Reese Edwards and Ben Souders. And Texas Roadhouse as well. They've got Eli House, Aaron Beebe, and Kyle Perry, who we're going to talk about a little bit later today. An interesting guy. He's got an interesting story, and racing this weekend with the Texas Roadhouse cycling team.
Well, you talked about First Internet Bank, kind of their hometown race with the Indy Criterium. They swept the podium last year in 2019, or last time that we raced in 2019. Ben Schmoot, Stefan Bassett, and Tanner Ward. So a strong group of riders. We have Tanner Ward in this race also, along with a couple other of his teammates. And so they had a good ride. They participated in the Joe Martin stage race. They were up there. They were riding very, very well. They have 3 races underneath their belt of trying to figure out this RGT platform. And so that's going to help them here in this criterium. And if we go back to 2018, it was Thomas Rivard, who was an under-23 national criterium champion before, who's a fantastic road rider now, that had won the Indy Criterium. And so bringing in, you can see, some big names from across the country that come in to be able to race in the Indy Criterium and the Mass Avenue Criterium. As it's popular and it's well organized and a ton of fun with the festivities and the group rides that all take place around that weekend.
Starting to see some of the familiar names of the league making their way up to the front. We saw Bruce Bird up there earlier, although constantly changing up at the front. You see Jonathan Crane maintaining his position up front. There's Simon Dubuque. I told you you'd see him at the front pretty soon. I think that's Chris Ray moving up the left side in the Neon Support Clean Sport Guten Plan Coaching Seesucker team. There's Melville pushing hard here as well.
Yeah, I noticed that. Melville totally going into the red, and that was more than just moving up position. That was pushing the pace, because he was already on the front when he started getting out of the saddle, going into that 6, 7, 8 watts per kilogram. See Christopher Roberti? Roberti took a flyer in that last day of the Joe Martin Criterium, almost holding everybody off for the win. And so he has some good form, Christopher Roberti. Ryan Knapp did a fantastic job in that Joe Martin race also. So a couple, First Internet Bank already showing they have good form. So be interesting to see what kind of tactics and strategy they decide on for today. So nice group of riders here, sitting at about 40 riders in this front group, coming up on just under 14 minutes of racing. This is a packed field right now we have.
Well, everyone's just trying to hang in at this point with a good-looking group up on the front. Nice to see such a big field here in our men's and women's race. Again, a ton of support for the Indy Crit, the Momentum Indy Weekend. We met the mayor earlier to give a special welcome and some words of encouragement to the riders, and we've got another special message to our field now.
Hello, I'm Vapo Osile, President of the Indianapolis City County Council, and it's my pleasure to welcome each of you on behalf of the Council to the inaugural virtual Indy Crit. As I'm sure you know, Indy loves a good race. And this year's Indy Crit, in particular, embodies so much of the spirit of this city by embracing innovations in racing and enthusiasm for both professional and amateur competition, and opportunities for families and fans of all ages to join the fun, all while showcasing the best of cycling, health, and active transportation in our community. In 2019, I had the privilege of kicking off IndyCrit's inaugural Major Taylor Ride, which honors the life and achievements of Indy native Marshall Major Taylor. Known across the globe as the world's fastest man, Taylor was the first black athlete to become the world cycling champion in 1899, and did so in the face of unrelenting racism and discrimination. Despite the challenges he faced, Taylor came to be known as much for his integrity, generosity of spirit, concern for others, and contributions to America's nonviolent struggle for racial equality, as he was for his athletic talent. The example Major Taylor set for us is as important today as it was then, and the IndyCrit celebrates his example and his spirit by bringing people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds together to celebrate all things bicycling. While we could not gather in 2020, we joined together virtually today in that same spirit, and look forward to seeing you here in Indianapolis for the live IndyCrit when we're able to safely gather again. Thank you, and good.
So cool to see that support from pretty much all levels of the city and government. They also have one of the best celebrity races, I think, of any race in the country. We see a lot of mascot races, a lot of kids races, but it seems like the Indy celebrity race really it turns out every year. So, Frankie, we got to get you in that. I think you would qualify as a celebrity in Indy. You're well known as a virtual race commentator.
That's very kind. Yeah, maybe both of us can kind of hop in there. You know what? Because missing the racing so much, and since we're doing all this virtual commentating, in between the break, I had to run to the restroom, and so in order to be able to make it lifelike, I have a porta potty sitting outside my house, so I can run out there to be able to take care of stuff and to be able to run back in, to be able to have that true kind of bike racing personality to it. So
it's authentic.
Yeah, very authentic. Miss the bike ride. It's always fun to be able to see any type of the race are not part of the pros is fun to watch. I'm talking about the kids race, the celebrity race, the mascot race. They get, those are always very entertaining and a lot of fun. And actually, those are kind of, for me at least, those are the ones where you can have a little bit more fun with the riders that are riding in those races and the spectators, because it's not as serious as the pro race of trying to be able to actually kind of announce what's happening and who does what and kind of their background. It's more joking around, and that makes it a little bit more fun.
Yeah, a little more fun for us, a little more fun for the riders, and more fun for everyone. The pros are always so serious out there. It's like they're getting paid to do this or something.
Yeah, and if you say something wrong, they get all offended.
I know. You say their team wrong one time, and it's like, you're the worst announcer ever. You forget a guy's name for 2 years in a row. It's like, announce the wrong winner. All of a sudden they say you're a bad announcer.
It happens.
All right, watching these guys up at the front in the front group. I'm also watching the riders at the back because remember we were watching Ben Thomas earlier in the show who had gotten dropped earlier. Thomas is not in here. He is not in this front group. So we're trying to figure out, well, there he is. I guess that answers my question.
No surprise there. That will be 0 points for Mr. Thomas for today.
So this is what we call a technical in the virtual racing world. I don't think Ben Thomas is intentionally putting out 0 watts, and I'm pretty sure his heart is beating. So that would register on RGT as well. This happens when a rider loses connection. It's probably an internet issue for Thomas. It's probably losing Wi-Fi, not having a hardwired connection. I know he's had issues with that before, and we very rarely get a look at him because his connection can't support the video call that we used and running RGT on it. So we usually don't have a camera for Ben Thomas. So that leads me to believe that he's got pretty weak Wi-Fi wherever he's racing. I think finally caught up with him out there today.
Yeah, and
Mike
as a
Swart
reminder,
up on the front now.
Brad, I was going to say, as a reminder, we have the Dirty River tomorrow, right? Which is another opportunity for at least another opportunity for Ben Thomas, but also for a lot of these other riders to come back and race again. It's going to be a little bit different than the Criterium. It's kind of well-known gravel race in England, the Dirty River. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But for anybody that does have technical problems, and it can be technical with your legs or technical with the internet, you're going to have another chance tomorrow to be able to come back and participate in the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, it'll be one of the first gravel races on RGT, as they have really done a nice job of building out that Dirty River course. And the gravel will be realistic in terms of how it affects the riders. There's some paved sections, some gravel sections. Basically, when they get onto the gravel sections, the resistance increases, just like you were riding on loose gravel. So the riders will need to adjust for that and compensate for the different terrain, the different road surfaces that they'll have out there throughout the Dirty River course. Again, that's tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern start for our pro women for day 2 of this weekend of racing.
Talked about a couple new teams like Upland Brewing, first time with the Echelon Sports League with Reese Edwards and Ben Souders, and then also first time for Texas Roadhouse, and some strong riders too. A very strong Criterium team with Kyle Perry and Aaron Beebe and Eli House, and those are 3 riders. If they were, if this was live in the Indy Crit, they definitely would do well. Since they're new to the RGT platform, it might be a little bit more of a question mark on them, but big talent right there with the Texas Roadhouse riders.
Yeah, Texas Roadhouse, one of the, again, omnipresent teams in real-life crit racing, but good to see them for some virtual racing here. Here's a good look at Kyle Perry from the Texas Roadhouse cycling team. Kyle, a really interesting guy. He is the principal at a design studio that he runs called Project One. They do all kinds of art installations all over the country and really all over the world. They have some really impressive installations throughout the country. In fact, they've been working on one that I found really cool as I was poking around the Project One website. So Project One was commissioned to complete 2 projects for the Evansville Museum of Arts, History, and Sciences, part of an expansion project that included a new entrance pavilion. The cladding for the immersive theater was designed to exist as a natural, organic component encased in a clean, white, modern box. They used 6 species of wood veneer. A pixelated gradient was created that moves up through the dome from dark to light. It's conceptually intended to mimic the natural aging characteristics of materials that are exposed to the elements. So in this way, the object seems as if it had always been in this space, an artifact that had been preserved by the surrounding building. The existing 30-foot radius dome was 3D scanned and digitized in order to geometrically subdivide into panels using a custom-written software. The textures were created from panels, from panel to panel, to give the perception that they're curling outward, the surface into planar diamonds rather than a triangulated mesh. It gives it that aging effect. So then, based on the dome's construction, the overall form, and the surface imperfections, they had to be accounted for to allow their system to float accurately. Utilizing the original surface from the scan, they were able to calculate the distance from each of the panel's corners, which was necessary to create custom spacers to adhere each panel back to the dome. Each of the 1,500 unique panels was CNC cut, associated with a specific size, species, and placement. This simplified installation having a completely prescribed system with only one location on the dome for each panel, including a custom door, floor, and wall conditions. Hard to believe that this is the simplified installation. That was Kyle Perry that you saw up there on top of this dome, getting it installed. Really incredible piece from Kyle Perry and his Project One studio here, Frankie.
That's just amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's the amount of work and technology and knowledge to be able to create and then design and then actually build, pretty remarkable. And, obviously very creative individual, but also athletic. He's a very good bike racer, racing in the Criteriums. Also races a lot on the track in the velodrome. But look at that piece. I mean, that's definitely a signature piece to be able to have in your welcome lobby.
Perry, of course, in this one today, with the Texas Roadhouse team. There he is in the pain cave. He's got to do a little work on the pain cave, too. He's got to get some geometric panels going down in the pain cave because it's looking like Matt Usborne town down there.
Yeah, if Matt Usborne was cell block H, I think Kyle Perry is riding in cell block Z. I mean, that is just a cement slab behind him. But he's an Indy native. It looks like he's outside. Not outside. I mean, you know what I'm saying, like in the garage or somewhere in a cellar, trying to, you know, in his little bike storage area. As you can see right there is Perry sitting right near the front there. So Lister right there. So there's two riders in this race. One of them is Sean Litster, Litster, out of Pittsburgh. Races for Project 412. And there's another rider called Mike Lister out of Great Britain. And it's very easy to get these two riders confused. Both of them extremely strong riders. Lister, Sean, out of Pittsburgh, he's been doing the Gran Fondo National Series, that RGT platform, and doing well, picking up some great results on that Gran Fondo National Series. These are a little bit longer events, but definitely very talented at riding on RGT. And so I'm going to look have to keep an eye out for Sean Litster to see where he ends up a little bit later on, a former mountain biker. And we'll see if we're going to see Mike Lister. If he shows up on there, then I'll speak a little bit about him. But let me go back and talk about Usborne, because Usborne right now, sitting in second overall in the series, we've seen him attack repeatedly, like really put out big efforts where we see him almost falling off the bike. He was injured for Joe Martin, so I reached out to him, and he said his leg all of a sudden stopped working and completely became swollen, and he wasn't sure what the problem was. So he had to go to the doctor, try to be able to figure it out. A little bit of a kidney malfunction, a little bit of a muscle breakdown, and it created some big problems for him where he had to take a good amount of time off. He said training's been going better, and he feels pretty good, but it'd be interesting to see how he is after kind of really a surprise injury, because he said it came out of nowhere. All of a sudden his leg just swelled up like a balloon, and he really wasn't sure what the problem is. And so we talk about cell block H here with Matt Usborne out of Vancouver, riding outside. Strong rider, but coming back from that injury. So it'll be interesting with not the intense training or the intense racing, what kind of legs he's going to have. And it might be good and it might be bad. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out for him, but glad he's doing better. And especially, you know, if you're having problems with your kidneys, you got to be able to hydrate. And who knows what caused the problem? And honestly, he said he doesn't even know what caused the problem.
Only a guy like Matt Usborne can describe it as just a little bit of kidney failure. I don't know if there is just a little bit of kidney failure, but good to see Matt is back up and riding and back with us this week in the Echelon Racing League. Always scary when you have a rider out to injury, but we wish Matt the best. Glad to see he's back and riding. That was quick recovery for Matt Usborne. He's a hardcore guy, that's for sure. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and only a rider, like we've seen the way he races, I think he could be one that could go so hard that he could end up wrecking his own body, like almost causing the injury to himself because he destroyed his muscles because he raced so hard. And I don't know that's the reason why, but he definitely has that mindset where a phenomenal, strong bike rider, and he's recovering and going to do good. So Blackburn is in this group, Croxton, Crane, and there's Charlie Ravel. In the back right there. Looking back at number 2, they switched the thing in there. Aaron Beebe, we see your 8 Beebe on there also. He's from Texas Roadhouse also, one of the riders on there, 31-year-old.
And here's Litzer, your buddy, making his way up to the front.
Yeah, Litster. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon. This is the second professor that we have. One of them races, I forget who it was, on the women's side from Carnegie Mellon also. But anyway, professor in mechanical engineering. Talked about his past. He used to be started mountain biking. He used to be a downhill mountain bike racer. Actually was a world team member out of Canada for the downhill mountain bike in 1997. Kind of started, switching over to more road riding, and then, last year he was the Pennsylvania State road champion. But Litster racing for that 412, strong rider, and he's been proving it repeatedly over this Gran Fondo National Series, which is a compilation of about about 8 different Gran Fondo races. We're coming up on number 5 this weekend, and Litster's definitely been doing very well in there, placing in the top 5s, and so. look to be able to see him do a little bit, do a good ride a little bit later on. Like seeing the numbers on the back wall right there. It's nice decoration, kind of give you a little bit of motivation and be able to keep those race numbers. That's good to see.
Yeah, a lot of riders keep their race numbers in the pain cave, a little motivation to get back to real life racing someday. You hope. A little encouragement along the wall. Yeah, Litzer with those, talking about the Fondo National Series, they're doing the time sections over there at first on RGT, where riders, you can kind of ride in between, and then there's just a few time sections on each day's course. So kind of a unique way of scoring it on the virtual platform. It's been cool to see that grow as well.
Yeah, I've done 3 of them, and it's been fun. The first one was like 51 kilometers, about 31, 32 miles. And I didn't finish. I went so hard on the dang first time section, I ended up blowing myself off, and I didn't finish. But the second one and the third one actually did pretty well, and I enjoyed doing it. It's super important where you can the sections of the course that aren't timed, and then on the time sections, obviously you go really hard because those are the ones that count like a GC time towards your overall placing. And so it's kind of a different format, and it's worked out really well. You can see totally where it's marked, where the time sections are. And so that looks good. So I look forward to trying to do, I think I'm going to try to do the next one tomorrow, which I'm not sure which one it is. I remember I did Asheville, I did Boone. Yeah, I can't remember which one it is, but it's good. It's a good kind of template to be able to try RGT, and it's important to be able to stay with the group. Obviously with the group, you're faster than if you're by yourself. Same thing here on the Criterium course.
It's always more fun with friends. Always more fun when you can stay with the group. And a little more fun when you can chat with them as well, have a little bit of communication. We have been listening to some of the Discords that the teams have been using. Most of the teams will have a Discord channel that they use to communicate internally during the race so they can exchange information, give some encouragement. Let's listen in to Project Echelon right now.
It's a good headline.
Charlie Valet still in there?
Yeah,
he's in here. He's in here. Okay.
Okay. I haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, watch for him to make a go of it too. I don't think he's going to like 3 to go. Yeah. Oh, nothing will stick right now.
No.
Just be careful. Be aware. Charlie just commented.
He's like, oh, I'm still here, boys. Zoom, zoom.
Well, sounds like a lot of it is based around taking inventory of the riders in there, Frankie, keeping an eye on the other riders.
Yeah, and you could hear Eric Hill talking. Frank Cundiff was talking in there. Peter Olenchek's on that Project Echelon team. But yeah, figuring out who of those strong riders are still in there. Charlie Velez, we've seen him strong, turning himself inside out. Young rider has done extremely well. And so, they're worried about certain riders in the race, which as well they should be. There's certain riders that are good sprinters, and so they want to make sure they know exactly who's in the group and who they're going up against.
You hear they were talking about Charlie Valet, rider from the Hugh Dog Racing team. Keeping an eye out for him up the road. He is in that group. Don't forget, amateur racing in the Echelon Racing League continues March 6th and 7th with the Tour of America's Dairyland, our next amateur league stop. You can race against world-famous virtual racer Frankie Andreu in the Category 4 race at the Aero Amateur League at EchelonRacingLeague.com. Just sign up there, and I'm not sure if you're on the 4s or the 3s now, Frankie. I think I know you got upgraded at some point, but you got to give Tour of America's Dairyland a shot.
I've been doing the Category 2s. Come on, give me some
2s.
credit.
Oh,
yes.
Man.
Yeah, that's why I keep getting dropped.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's been here. There's a nice shot of Charlie Velez with Hugh Dog Racing. Calm, cool, and collective right now. It's very different once we get down towards the end of the race because he can turn himself inside out. So he's just kind of following the wheels. A ton of experience also as Velez. He's won the race on the Pattersburg, and he did a great ride. He was second at the Joe Martin time trial. A good rider as a junior, also third at the Junior National Championships. And so he's just kind of, he's just waiting for the time to go by and for some of the kilometers to go by before he's going to start showing himself a little bit more near the front.
Yeah, Belay, a in real life rider that made the transition over to virtual racing and looking to get back to some more road racing in 2021 into 2022. He's based out of NorCal. Some really good riding up there and some really strong fields. So to do well in the NorCal scene, you got to be pretty strong. So we know Charlie Belay has some pretty strong natural talent. Here's Ryan Knapp up on the front, local boy for the First Internet Bank cycling team, mixing things up at the front now.
Yeah, Knapp, the team director for First Internet Bank. He was in 2019. He was actually second overall, or second in the amateur national championships in the road race, and he was very active in the Joe Martin stage race. He had a good ride there, Ryan Knapp, and so he's got some good legs. Speaking really quick, one rider that I noticed that's not in this race, who's been in many of the other races, is Zach Nair. And Brad, I was wondering if you had a chance, did you see that Velo News article that Zach Nair wrote about his Movistar Challenge?
I did. He made the first selection, and actually I think they had the next round of selection was yesterday or the day before. I'm not sure if he made the cut or not, but yeah, Zach was in the running there.
Yeah, well, reading that article, it was just amazing to me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, is the power that he put out. He talked about the RGT Joe Martin stage race where the time trial, 10 minutes at an average of 434 watts. Yeah. And in the criterium, for the final 43 seconds, putting out 700 watts for almost just under a minute in the criterium after 3 days of racing. And so, yeah, he's doing this Movistar selection race. They've done 2 rounds. He is qualified to be able to move on. I don't know when the 3rd round is, but he mentioned in the 2nd round of that Movistar race, for the final 20 seconds after, racing for, an hour and a half, for 19 seconds, putting out over 1,000 watts. And to me, that's unbelievable. It's like a completely different level. And it's not only Zach Nair, because some of these other riders who are competing in that are also competing on the RGT, like Tom Thrall, Jaden Yager, Christopher Roberti right here, who participated in it, Sean Guidish, Al Blackburn. These are all very familiar men's names that we've seen on the RGT platform that are also competing on this Movistar Challenge.
Some of the numbers that we've seen in virtual racing have been just off the charts. I mean, numbers that we wouldn't even dream of seeing from road riders, from real life riders. But the difference is those numbers don't always translate to the road, because there's all these other elements that go into the real life racing on the road. The way you sit on the bike, your efficiency in pedaling, how comfortable you are in a group, your ability to ride around with actual riders where crash damage has an actual effect. So a lot of times it doesn't translate for the virtual riders to come over the road. And same thing with road riders trying to race virtual racing. There are a lot of very, very good in real life bike racers that are terrible on the virtual platforms, because
yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. I think the biggest difference also is you don't see these super high power numbers in real life, partly because a lot of these, the road races, 5 hours, maybe, 4 hours long, 5 hours long, like if you're seeing European professionals. And so that wears you down. And so that's harder to do, 20 seconds at 1,000 watts. Now, these sprinters at the end of a Tour de France stage, for sure, they can get up to 1,000 watts, and they're the best of the best. But the power numbers that we're seeing on the virtual platform are mind-blowing. It's astonishing how strong so many riders are. And it's fun to watch. It's fun to see, these kind of power numbers that these guys are putting out. And these same guys that are competing, on Zwift, in the leagues, on RGT, they're kind of mixing and matching. As we see, a nice shot here of Christopher Roberti. And he's, super good roader, super good criterium rider out of Brighton, Michigan. And, rides outside a good amount, but also rides inside. And he had a good Joe Martin stage race also. So he's going to be thinking about how to be able to set things up for his First Internet Bank for the Indy Criterium.
Now, we talked about the learning curve to new riders coming to race on the RGT platform, some of the bad luck that sometimes comes with that as well, as we saw Ben Thomas with some bad luck early on today. We were also looking for Kerry Warner in this group. Kerry is a new signing to the Project Echelon team. He's going to be racing with them on the road. Now, Kerry is probably best known as a cyclocross racer and mountain bike rider. He does a lot of his professional riding off-road, but he joined the Project Echelon team this year and gave his first virtual race a shot on RGT. Here's how it went for him.
Friday, February 5th, and I'm here on a trainer in front of a video camera to bring to you my first e-racing experience. Before we get too deep into that, I'd like to point out that I am a newly minted member of the Project Echelon road team. The TT is exactly the same as the TT that we would race in real life. The road race is the last 45 miles of the road track, and the crit is the exact same downtown Fayetteville crit. T-minus 20 seconds. Wish me luck, guys. Big rig engaged. 3, 2, 1. Oh, man. I've been told to, quote, be ready to get off the line. So, 3, 2, 1. Go! I forgot to turn the fan on. Well, that was short-lived.
I'd say it went pretty well. His first foray into virtual racing. What do you think, Frankie?
Very similar to my experience, you know. It's like, you know, on that day number 2, he forgot to ramp it up for that start. And, you know, he had to pay the price trying to catch back on. And the criterion was a little bit of a learning curve. So, yeah, you know, it's different. He's a fantastic, one of the best professional cyclocross riders. And you come out of this virtual world, and you just got to figure it out a little bit. You just got to learn a little bit. But, you know, that's what makes it exciting. A lot of these guys have been racing for many years. He's done so many cross races, he can do them almost. This is something exciting and new for him, and so that's why he decided to come over on board. But that was fun to be able to see. That was a lot of fun to be able to watch from Kerry Warner Jr. Well, First Internet Bank, Tanner Ward on the front once again for doing a good job. We talked about he was one of the members on the USA Cycling's eSport World Championship team, as Tanner Ward just kind of gets swallowed up as a lot of these other riders. It's Bacon now on the front. So it keeps changing. Coming up, what are we coming up on? Actually, we're already coming up on 42 minutes of racing, so that's a pretty good amount of time underneath the belt. But this is I think this, Brad, would you say this is the largest group we've had coming into a finish, I think, almost so far?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly it's 17.5K to go. I don't know that we've ever had a group of over 20 riders remaining. It's probably more common in the criterium. I think it's easier for the riders to hang in there in the crit than it is in the longer road races. But yeah, this is going to be a unique one because this is by far the biggest group that we've had at this point in the race, this late in the race.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of makes it more exciting because you have more riders able to participate in what's going to happen during those last 5 laps. Now, the women's side, the speed picked up during the last 3 laps. Nobody was really able to attack, and it came down to a sprint won by the Indy native Ariel Coy. For the men's side, we may see a little bit more team tactics. We may see some flyers, and I think that could make it a little bit more exciting coming in those 2 laps before we get into that final sprint. But Charlie Revelle, you can see, is up there. Tanner Aled Jones, a very good rider, also has managed to be able to, you know, kind of sit right in the middle. He's not getting himself in any difficulty as he's just kind of taking his time. Now, Uberti, the first one on the flyer with a little bit of a gap. We've seen how quickly these gaps can come down, but Uberti definitely in the red. Bacon looks like he's in the red and on the front of the peloton trying to be able to bring it back.
Yeah, Uberti not messing around today. Certainly willing to gamble here at the Indy Crit.
Yeah, a little inter-rivalry, too. Bacon rides for Bissell ABG Giant, right? And then Uberti with First Internet Bank. So neither of these 2 teams wanting to let the other one get the best of them. But again, the whole field was able to be able to come back. And that was a big 7 watts per kilogram attack from Uberti. The first, I think, of what we're going to see from some other riders. Now, normally in a criterium, you'd see a counterattack. You'd see somebody going over the top, new riders attacking. But again, the speed is high, 45 kilometers per hour. A little bit difficult when that speed is so high. And again, Brad, you've mentioned it. one guy by himself, there's no way. You need to have 3 or 4 more riders come up to you. And so we may see guys take a flyer, see if anybody comes up to them. And if nobody does, then they have to shut it down, go back into the group, reshuffle the deck. Because Usborne now starting to be able to lay down a little bit of power.
It seems like a lot of riders have been starting to test the front here more and more in the last couple laps of racing here at the front of the men's field. I've also been watching a lot of riders on camera on their phones. I think they're using the in-game texting feature to communicate with each other, send some chat messages back and forth to riders on different teams. So it sounds like we also heard Project Echelon talking about that, talking about Charlie Valet talking with them on the in-game chat. So there might be some alliances being formed out there on course as these guys try to figure out what to do about this big group remaining with just over 15 kilometers of racing to go. Now, we talked about Kerry Warner earlier joining the Project Echelon racing team. Project Echelon doing a lot to help veterans. In this month, February, Black History Month, during which we seek to honor and give back to our Black veterans and service members. Project Echelon is teaming up with the St. Augustine University cycling team to complete the Ride for 22 Challenge, raising money for the Ride to Stop Suicide and SAU cycling program. They've been riding 22 miles a day for 22 days straight in honor of the 22 veterans we lose to suicide every day. The movement hopes to raise $150,000 that will be used to purchase 100 Argon 18 road bikes to be given away to veterans in 2021. You can find out more and donate at projectechelon.org. So great cause from a great group, trying to get more veterans on bikes. Again, projectechelon.org/programs for more information. Speaking of, Eric Hill taking a look on the front just as Uberti escapes again. This guy just can't get enough of the solo rides on the front here, and he's got nobody with him into the red zone.
Yeah, that was a bigger attack, almost 12 watts per kilogram he did right there. So, he was out of the saddle attacking right there. And again, nobody able to, it catches a lot of guys by surprise, so they can't really go with him. And this is where that kind of inter-game communication could come in handy, where it's get 2 or 3 other guys and say, hey, let's go. Let's try to be able to take a flyer here. But Uberti now by himself trying to extend that gap. He's a very good, does track racing, does criterium racing, road racing. A good cyclist out of Michigan, and he's been reeled back in right now.
I think part of the team tactics, 9 laps to go.
I think it's trying to soften up the legs on some of the other riders, right? Trying to be able to make some other guys have to attack and have to chase. And Uberti might be the carrot that they're throwing out there to soften up some of the other riders. As what you just mentioned, 9 laps to go, Brad. Is that what you saw?
Yep. Yeah, you saw Ryan Knapp getting up there as well to the front, maybe trying to position for that counterattack, the old 1-2. So, yeah, good observation there. Uberti may just be trying to set up a teammate here. He won't be the last guy from his squad that we see attacking today.
Somebody's on the front again on the attack. Look at it stringing out. So Tanner Ward. So that's another First Internet Bank that's going after it. Zach Andrews is trying to be able to bring him back. Usborne following right behind him. All 3 in the red, over 6.5 watts per kilogram. Chiller Ravel in that group. One rider getting distance just off the back, surprised by the acceleration. He has to make sure he puts his head down to be able to tag on to the back of this group.
These guys had a plan coming into today. I think this is a timed attack from the First Internet Bank guys here as Tanner Ward launches off of the attack by Chris Uberti early, and that's going to bring a few more riders with him here. I don't know that they're going to get the separation that they've been looking for, but now it's Ward's turn to take over on the front in the red zone.
Well, that's also the second time we've seen Ruben Bacon from Bissell ABG Giant be the rider that has to shut the gap down. So he shut down Uberti, and he had to go on the front the next time and shut down Tanner Ward. So Ruben Bacon definitely either feeling really good or he's fulfilling his job responsibilities with that Bissell ABG Giant team during the latter part of this race. So 8 laps to go. Tanner Ward looking very comfortable. We talked about him winning that championship qualifying race on the RGT platform, which gave him a spot on the Esport World Championships, the UCI Esport World Championships, where he was able to go over and race. See Ollie Jones in there, Aled Jones right there, Ravel and Crane, all of them still managed to be able to stay with this group.
All right, time for our next Macro Chef macro recipe here before these guys get wrapped up. These come from Marian University student and bike racer Spencer Miller, known on Instagram as the Macro Chef. Spencer has built a massive following, creating healthy recipes using his special protein powder to replace the desserts he had to give up while training for a cyclist. So this recipe is cinnamon toast protein donuts. It starts with a scoop of 1 protein vanilla ice cream flavor, along with some cinnamon toast crunch, which I have to say is definitely a personal top 5 when it comes to cereal. Big fan. Vanilla ice cream flavor protein base is then used for the glaze, because what's a donut without a good glaze? Then you just bake it all up, get them glazed, and some more cereal on top for a protein-packed cinnamon toast donut. Spencer has tons more recipes on the Macro Chef Instagram and Facebook pages. You can check them out there. And the winners of today's race are going to get some Macro Sups products of their choice. Talked about Jackie Godby earlier, our winner of the Joe Martin stage race, but we got to get our own here, Frankie.
Yeah, I need some side treats. I mean, definitely getting hungry watching all this. But it's kind of cool because it's such a healthy alternative to, kind of buying the store-bought stuff. And the way, it's fine. It's like a TV show. The way they make it look, it comes out incredibly good. But I got a feeling that these come out probably pretty good and taste pretty darn good also.
Yeah, it's actually relatively easy to make. There's not a ton of changes. Where does a Cinnamon Toast Crunch fall on the cereal hierarchy for you? It's in regular rotation at my house. So you guys, I know you have the kids. Are you guys a sugar cereal house or no?
We try not to be a sugar cereal house, but I would say Cinnamon Toast Crunch is maybe, 3rd or 4th on the list. And it depends. If you ask the kids, their obviously cereal choice is different than my cereal choice.
Right. They don't like the oat brand that you prefer. They're more Cinnamon Toast Crunch people.
There you go. Exactly.
All right, well, we are getting down to it. 7 laps to go up here at the front as Charlie Revel takes over the pace up at the front of the field. You can see the distance to go in the upper right-hand corner, 9.5 kilometers. That'll be, they're going to see 6 laps to go next time through. And look at this. Riders getting shredded out the back. Now, Ryan Knapp, I don't think we've seen an attack from yet. I think we've seen every other First Internet Bank rider send one off the front. So maybe Knapp is the powder that they're keeping dry out there today.
Yeah, and maybe saving his legs, seeing a nice job. Project Echelon riders also. I mean, Eric Hill doing a great job of staying in there. Frank Kunduf still riding in there. See, the Texas Roadhouse guys have been, they've been staying kind of reserved, which is kind of what you need to do, except when you get into, I'd say, the final 3 laps. So right now, still, I love having this large group. And the women's side, we saw our biggest group ever coming in towards the finish. And I think a lot of that is about experience and learning the platform. We're seeing the same thing here in the men. To have a group of 35 to 40, it makes it more exciting for the riders, and it makes it more exciting for everybody watching. And so now we see a big attack right now. Melville going off the front right now, but he's going to get swarmed back in. Again, those solo moves, so hard to be able to make stick.
Yeah, we saw Melville going earlier in the day. He's been in several moves. In fact, he got into a small group earlier, but this one going to come back pretty quickly. After the attacks that Melville put in there earlier today, he's got a target on his back. This is not the kind of guy that you let go. So they know Melville. They know not to let him go, and that's why that one was shut down so quickly.
Well, I guess Matt Usborne's recovered, hasn't he? On the attack again. Tanner Ward out of the saddle now, trying to be able to bring him back. So Usborne, again, he has a big chance. He's got to be careful about how much work he does right now, because he has to make place as well at the finish, right? Because he has a chance to be able to take over the overall Echelon Racing League series if he can pick up the maximum amount of points. And so, but maybe he's not confident with waiting for a sprint. And you can see, my goodness, they come up quick on him. But Usborne with a big attack right there. Tanner Ward bringing it back, and everybody else just following the wheels. 2 guys in trouble right now. This is dangerous back there.
A good point with Oosborne sort of fighting the battle on two fronts. He wants a stage win today, but he also has a chance to overtake the overall from Ben Thomas. A second place where you don't blow up is going to be better for the overall than going for the win, blowing up, and ending up 30th place or getting dropped out of the back. So Oosborne's got to be thinking about the overall scenario. He has to make sure that he doesn't go too deep. He can't gamble so much that there's a chance that he loses time or significant points, because he's got a big opportunity today with Ben Thomas having an early technical issue. Here's Charlie Velez going now.
Yeah, I would agree. A top 5 today, I think, would be more valuable for Oosborne than, gambling on a win and then going off the back. Charlie Dog Racing on the front. Right behind him is Cooper bringing him back. Must say, a nice ride by so John Cooper out of Chicago, Illinois. So is that red jersey? So that's a Triple X Racing Athletico rider that's trying to hook up with Velez. So 2 riders is better than 1. So perhaps you can see both of these guys still pushing the pace. Hill was the one on the front doing the chase with Frank Kunduff. So 2 riders from the same team, from the Echelon Racing team, on the front trying to be able to bring this back. They missed out on the move and they don't want to stay off the back. So it's about to get brought back again. Charlie Velez right there. Nice look at him of keeping that tempo going, keeping the pressure on the pedals.
And then John Cooper below, you may notice the familiar Pain Cave alongside Jackie Godby. You see her Argon 18 time trial bike there just next to John's. And then Charlie Velez up top as those guys come back into the fold after a little bit of time working together, trying to get away. Ruben Bacon back up here in the red zone, just on the outside, as be coming up to 4 laps to go here. Their field rolling under the arch.
Cooper won one of the very first Echelon Racing League Series races, right? He took Borrego Springs, so that was very early on. Since then, not as good of results, but it's hard to be able to top. When you win, all you want to do is be able to win again. So Cooper doing a good job right now of responding to that attack, but more importantly, recovering in order to stay in the group. And that's tricky sometimes when you do a big move like that and you redline yourself. You want to try to ease up, and you can't ease up too much because these guys come with a speed that is incredible when they catch you. And so you got to be able to stay with the group and keep the power on.
Jackie Godby checking out the setup there of John Cooper. It's like maybe there's a question about the trainer or something. This is like that feeling where you swear your brake is rubbing, or you feel you've got a flat tire, and then you get off the bike and sure enough, you're just tired. Certainly hope that's not happening for Cooper here, but did see Godby taking a look at his setup there.
Look at the gear. Look at the power he's having to put in. He's in a massive gear right now.
I wonder
really
if he's
putting
having
in a ton of power.
issues.
That could be maybe because he's having to get out of the saddle on a flat course. He's definitely not spinning. He has a different style, obviously, than Jackie Godby. Godby turns the pedals over. She spin. He's just mashing on those pedals, and it seems like so much so that maybe it is a shifting issue, but he's having to get out of the keep the kind of that momentum going. So tough ride by Cooper right there, but he's managed to be able, I think, to still stay in this group. So it's a nice ride by him. Velez looks a lot more comfortable on top, drinking some water, staying hydrated. He's just like chilling right now. He's just chilling for the sprint with 4 laps to go.
Yeah, Velez looks like the kind of guy that's got a nice sprint left in those legs. He's taking on the gel right now. Perfect timing. That sugar and caffeine will hit right in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. So looking for that last little boost. That's his finishing shot right there for Charlie Velez. Looking to take a win today at the Indy Momentum Crit. $35 guys in here, Frankie. 38 guys in here.
That's a big group. It's like I said, it's nice to see. It's going to be interesting to see if it translates over. Texas Roadhouse riders, very good Criterium riders. First Internet Bank, very good Criterium riders. And kind of honestly, they're going up very good virtual riders. And they are 2 different groups. At least for now, they're 2 different groups. Some have made the transition and able to do they haven't had 2020. So anybody who's doing all that virtual racing, we don't know how it translates over to the real life. And so that's what's going to be going into 2021, with Criterium and with other Criteriums to see how this winter kind of intensity has either helped riders or maybe riders, and that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for a lot of guys. But Charlie Velez looking very comfortable, just kind of sitting in there. Aled Jones right there as he goes by. Sedgebrook, a very strong rider, also is in this group. So who's going to take a flyer? We're now at 3 laps to go. Who's willing to be able to everything to be able to soften up the legs of maybe a sprinter or to be able to take that chance and take victory?
Ward and Jones lifting the tempo at the front as Velez tries to get some rest at the back. And now's the time to do it at 3 kilometers of racing to go. This will take him down to 2 laps of racing to go at Momentum Indy.
Right now, a lot of teams with teammates in here. In short pedal power, draft racing. We see the Canyon Esports teams in that got kind of purple and blue standout kit, the light blue jerseys of Echelon. Restart Racing in the darker green jerseys. So multiple riders with teammates in this race. And that fight for position is just going to continue to increase. All people are going to have to be near the front, and they don't want to get gapped off the back. So you can see a lot more red starting to take place as well. Right now on our screen, I'm seeing 33rd to 40th with our riders. It's interesting just to be able to go back up to the front to be able to see what kind of riders are going to put out those red numbers to maybe do a surprise attack. As Melville, once again, no surprise there, is Melville on the attack again. BB on the front, not doing the chase, so nobody's reacting right now. Melville, the only one in the red. Everybody else still kind of holding back. He's got a little bit of a gap, but he's not exactly pulling away from him. Look at that, 50 kilometers per hour. That's just under 30 miles an hour, and maybe that's why Melville's having trouble establishing a gap.
Well, Melville gets away, but just as quickly as he gets away, looks like the group going to slowly reel him back in. You see Jones sitting on the front. It is so tough for a solo rider to get away here, especially at a lap and a half of racing to go as we go just under 2 kilometers of racing remaining. Want to bring our race director, Jennifer Svar, back in one more time. Jennifer, I know this is a unique way to watch the last laps of your race, but are you feeling the nerves of the race director here, even in the virtual race?
Not quite like the in-person, but you know, it's really exciting to see some of our local. Oh, there we go, the bell lap.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you guys have had, it's been an awesome day of racing, and how cool was it to have a local rider winning our women's race?
It's so cool, and her husband, Aaron Beebe, is like right up there. He's been doing well, you know, all day. So let's see what happens here.
All right, fingers crossed for the locals doubling up. We'll keep our eye on Aaron Beebe in this group, who, Frankie, we talked about a few times. He was in the mix. There he is right there at the back, the white kit with the orange helmet. Beebe looking for the double up in the household.
Well, Aaron Beebe, 31-year-old on that Texas, on ABG Bissell. So, yeah, that would be a story, right? If they double up, that would be. You know what? Somebody's going to have bragging rights at the dinner table unless BB can match what Ariel Coy did. So, yeah, he's got some pressure on his shoulders. We're going to see if he's going to be able to step up to that. Peter Olenchek in the red right there, trying to be able to help out his teammates, leading some riders out. But a big fight for position coming up to the front. A lot of guys in red. Look at that. All you're seeing is red on that left-hand side of the screen, and that's in the back. So we're looking right now, 27th to 35th. These are the guys in the back trying to be able to keep in contact. Half a lap to go. Look at the meters counting down. 300 meters to go. This is what caught me by surprise last time, is that 300 meters to go. All of a sudden, they started their sprint a little bit late. Out of that corner, it looks like Huberti's on the front. Will Harden from Draft Racing sitting in that draft. Will he be able to launch a good sprint to be able to come around? But look at the speed from the riders behind.
It's going to be another chaotic finish as Kevin Bouchard Hall hits the line first. I think he takes his first win in the Echelon Racing League here. We'll wait for confirmation, but certainly looked like Bouchard Hall to me first across the line. And there you go, confirmation.
Wow, good sprint by Bouchard Hall, timing it perfectly.
Very nice.
Look at that. His blue jersey looks like a wet jersey, and for good reason.
Oh, yeah, look at that. The Velocio jersey soaked through for Kevin Bouchard Hall as Restart Racing takes a win here today in another chaotic sprint. And Another new winner in our men's race as well. The Indy Crit proved to be the great upsetter of the Echelon Racing League this week, Frankie.
Well, yeah, perfectly timed. He took off coming out of that corner, and a 39-year-old just taking it for Restart Racing. And so translating, a very good cross rider and a very good virtual rider. So, yeah, as far as I can tell, this is the first win he has had in the Echelon Racing League Series. The other part I was looking at where Matt Usborne finished, and I did not see Matt Usborne in that first 10 to 15 riders in the finish. So that's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, I think, for Matt, not to be able to pick up some valuable points. But even if he was able to finish after coming off that injury, I got to give him a lot of credit for coming out here and attempting to be able to race with the high level that these guys are showing day in and day out.
Well, let's see where Usborne ended up today. And doesn't even look like he made the top 10, with Kevin Bouchard-Hall taking the win, Cindra Breen in second, Alec Jones taking third, Gary Moeller ends up fourth place, and Jonathan Crane rounding out the top 5 for Restart Racing. So, I would call this an upset for Matt Usborne out there today, Frankie, because he's going to miss out on some points that he had an opportunity to widen his GC lead over Ben Thomas, but doesn't look like he's going to even end up inside the top 10 here today.
Yeah, just missing out, but you could see how fast the guys were going, and what a 3.961 Bouchard-Hall shows that he kind of, he saved himself, kind of knew how to be able to ride this. Look at Jonathan Crane, man. And he was just cranking, and Ruben Bacon, we saw him chasing down a lot of moves in the beginning. I'm surprised he had any kind of legs at the end to even have that sprint. So a fantastic ride for ninth place by Ruben Bacon, but all of these guys, this was a fast race and a hard race, and so they'll watch. But even more so was that we had 40 guys coming into the sprint together. We haven't seen that yet in the Echelon Racing League, so that was really good for our Indy Criterium.
All right, let's grab a word with our race winner, Kevin Bouchard-Hall. Kevin, congratulations, your first win in the Echelon Racing League here. This course has been the great mix-up here in this week of racing. Is it something about the Indy course? I mean, why are we seeing new winners this week?
Because it's so fast and there's such a washboard going on. It's kind of a lottery of like when you jump and whether or not you're fresh enough to have some kick. And I think you needed to have everything fall in the right place, and I just got lucky, really. I think we had like 50 laps or however many we did to try to guess when the jump point is and where you needed to be in the pack. And I think I felt like I had a good idea of where I needed to go, and it worked out better than I thought. But, I mean, I think it easily could have been 20 other people that won today. I just got lucky.
A super fast finish coming to the line and a chaotic one there as well. I mean, how do you sprint in a virtual race like this? Is there much strategy to the finish there? Are you trying to time that sprint just right? Or how do you win a sprint on RGT like this?
It's timing your momentum. So, like, if you are coasting and drifting back in the pack, your sprint will just get you back to where you were. And as everyone's accelerating and people are jumping early, you need to kind of go with that pack momentum and then be able to have that second gear to jump on top of that momentum to sprint. So it's timing that. I think the best esports sprinters are guys that can gradually ramp up their power and then kick at the very end and be in the right spot. So it's kick from the right spot, have the right momentum, and have that extra gear. And that's kind of fitness. That last bit is fitness. Everything else is playing the game well.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kevin. Congratulations on the win today. Congrats to Restart Racing. I see a lot of your guys celebrating here in the Zoom room. So congratulations to you and the guys today.
Thanks.
So some good tips for you there, Frankie, in your budding virtual racing career. It sounds like the momentum, the timing, a big part of those finishing sprints.
Yeah, it's very interesting how technical and analytical, coming into a sprint is. And so kind of no different than in real life. And so, yeah, definitely, great to be able to hear those words from Kevin Bouchard-Hall and how he handles that. And that's definitely, a learning experience, not, for him, but for a lot of other riders that are able to see how he did it and how he watched. But, he mentioned a lot of other riders could have had a good chance. And if you look at those time gap differences, really, it is so close. It's just a matter of who timed it perfectly. And for Kevin Bouchard-Hall and Restart Racing, it was an ideal win for the Indy Criterium.
Well, as we wrap up our Indy Crit today, don't forget Dirty Reaver wrapping up this weekend of racing tomorrow with an 11 o'clock start time. And then for the end of the Echelon Racing League, we head to the Tour of America's Dairyland, March 11th through 14th, 4 days of racing there. And we're also very excited to include our first hand cycling competition with paracycling at the Tour of America's Dairyland coming up March 11th through 14th. That is going to do it for today's racing in the Echelon Racing League. Congratulations to all of our riders here in Momentum Indy. Ariel Coy, our winner in the women's race. Kevin Bouchard-Hall, your winner in the men's race. For Frankie Andreu, my name is Brad Soner saying thanks for watching. We hope to see you at Momentum Indy in real life as soon as we know when that will be. Until then, we'll see you on RGT tomorrow for the Dirty Reaver at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.